Hey, my name is Brian Knight from Pragmatic Works, and welcome to this session on building your first Canvas application. So thanks for joining us today. Stay tuned. Welcome back, guys, and thank you for joining a session on how to build your first Canvas application. My name is Brian Knight from Pragmatic Works, and today we're going to go ahead and build a few applications today. We're going to be a heavily hands-on day. I do speak fast, I recognize that, but luckily this is YouTube, so you can pause me. So a few things to note before we begin. Let me go here we go. Again, my name is Brian Knight. My Twitter handle is @BrianKnight. Not very creative there. I'm a powerapps MVP now out of Jacksonville, Florida. And I am the founder of Pragmatic Works. We do training around the Azure stack, and we also do training for the Power Platform as well. Additionally, I've authored about 16 books, none of which people actually read, but you know, it's all good. And we blog at pragmaticworks.com with the rest of my team. And then we also do YouTube pretty frequently on this channel right here. All right. So a little housekeeping today. You'll find in the chat window, or in the chat window right now, there is a donation link to Feeding America. So we do this free of charge for you guys. Feeding America is trying to, the network of 200 different food banks, all local to you guys. So if you feel generous today and you like the content, we'd love to give back a little bit to our community, and we're trying to raise a few $100 a day to give back to the America to feed the community. If you're not American, no worries. Try to find somewhere local to you as well. But with COVID right now, there's a lot of people that are really struggling, and we want to help out the best we can. All right, additionally, we have a last bit of housekeeping is we have a 50% off sale right now at Pragmatic Works. You'll find that in the video description that will walk you through how do you get that. We have a whole bunch of Power Apps boot camps we'll cover later today, as well as our on-demand platform. All right, so let's begin, guys. Today we are going to start, we have a long 3-hour session, and again, it's a very, very hands-on session. So if you choose to, we would love to have you go ahead and drive with me. Now, again, I do speak fast sometimes, so feel free to go ahead and pause the screen and kind of walk with me and rewind. And this is being recorded, of course. It'll be on YouTube for posterity's sake. So I'm actually giving you access to my database so you can play along with me today as well. Matter of fact, you're going to find the connections to my database in the video description, as well as a whole bunch of coding examples we'll be using today as well. With me today is Matt Peterson in the chat window, and Mitchell as well is manning the cameras right now. So thank you very much, guys. And Mitchell, Matt, thank you for handling the chat today as well. He'll be go ahead and copying in all the code throughout the day. So as I mentioned some code, Matt's kind enough to go ahead and copy that in the chat window as well. All right, so a little bit of pieces before we begin. We'll be using the free version of Power Apps. Because you're using my database, you'll be able to play along with me. So that's going to be an amazing, hopefully, time. But before we begin, I'd love to know, I'm watching the chat window right now. Tell me how many Power Apps you've actually built. Of course, 0 is a completely fine answer. It won't be 0 after today. So I'd love to go ahead and know how many of those you've actually built. You're about 30 seconds behind me. It looks like we have a lot of people from Netherlands. We have some Denmark people. We have people all around the world here joining us today. So thank you guys for joining us. So while you guys are typing that, let's talk about the anatomy of Power Apps. So for Power Apps, the nice thing about it is a Microsoft tool. It's part of the Power Platform. So the Power Platform gives you Power BI, Power Apps, of course, Power Automate, as well as a Power Virtual Agent. So it gives you a whole bunch of pieces here. A lot of zeros, awesome. So a lot of people that are, this will be the first application they've built. I'm seeing mostly zeros, a couple 2s here also, but mostly zeros, awesome. I'm so excited to be your first. All right, so Power Apps is part of that Power Platform family, and chances are you have actually have a license of it if you have an Office 365 subscription. So that's one of the nice things about it. When you license Office 365, it comes with the Power Apps for Office 365. And we'll talk about the differences in the licenses a little bit later also. And we have some, even from as far south as Nicaragua. That's amazing. Thank you, guys. All right, so Now, because this application is part of that, let's talk about some anatomy of what we can do. Power Apps gives you the ability, you install the Power Apps app on your phone, and when you install that app on your phone, it gives you full access to all the applications that you built for your company. So, for example, you might decide to build an app and you want to see it on a Mac or on a PC or on an Android or on an iPhone in my case. Whatever the case may be, when I build this app, it gives me full access to the phone, the PC, the Mac, and I have one code to build. It is a low-code solution, meaning that it doesn't take a developer to build this. You could be an analyst, you could be an accountant, and you can build some basic applications. Matter of fact, most people we train on Power Apps are not developers. They're going to be your accountants, your analysts, your salespeople, your nurses, those kind of folks that are all helping out and building applications. So because I am using my phone, for example, let me actually bring my phone over here real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and open up an application. Oh, here we go. There we go. Let me open this up real quick. All right, this is going to be my phone in a moment here. Let me go ahead and stream. There we go. All right, so because I am using Power Apps, all I had to do is install the Power Apps app on my phone. So I'll go ahead and open that right there. And after I install that, let me go back an app here. After I install that, I have access to all the applications from my organization. Okay, so I don't have to go and submit every single app to the iTunes Store and the Google Play Store and all that. But because I'm using this phone device, all the stuff I get gives me access to this as well. So, for example, I have access to the phone's GPS, their camera, their signature pad, for example, to scan barcodes. I also get access nowadays to things like mixed reality. So if I say explore this in mixed reality, and I'll go ahead and say I'm getting a little parched already, need some coffee here. I'm gonna go ahead and drop a coffee grinder here in, and we can kind of look at this little 3D model of the coffee grinder. Oh, okay, there's a 3D model there somewhere. And then I'll hit View Model. Check out what happens. This is actually my environment I'm talking to you guys on right now. There we go. There's a green screen. There's Mitchell over there. Say hi, Mitchell. All right. And then if I were to hit drop right there, there's my coffee grinder. I can go ahead and move it around here. Let me go ahead and move it around. There we go. And spin it around. And as soon as I lock it in, click somewhere to lock it in, you'll see I can kind of spin around this coffee grinder. I'm looking at the back of it here, as you can see. But you can spin around it, look on top of it. This is showing you what Power Apps can do on the phone. So everything your phone can do, all the power of your phone, can be brought to Power Apps also. It doesn't have to be just a phone though. It could also be things like your PC or your Mac as well. What's available is all based on the device you're on. So let me go back over again. All right, so you build the code one time and it shows everywhere. Now, one of the cool things about Power Apps also is I can share these applications by just having your email address. I just have to make sure that you have a license to it, for example. So with just a few clicks, you are now using my application as a consumer. Okay, and this is the theme of all the Power Platform. These apps can be integrated with the Power BI, can be integrated in the rest of the Power Platform family. They can also be shown in Dynamics or in Teams. Teams is a whole bunch of stuff you can do now in Teams. The whole goal of this is bring the app to where people are going to use it. So if you have a heavily Teams shop, put the app slap dab right there in Teams so people can use it there. All right, now I use it a lot. We noticed we had an application called our Shoutout application. And the minute we put that in Teams, we saw a huge adoption increase in our app consumption at that point. Additionally, there are if you are a developer, you can extend Power Apps and make it more developer-centric. You can build a piece one time, a component one time, and then use it across your entire enterprise. It is a WYSIWYG environment, meaning what you see is what you get. So if you move something to a map control to the left, it shows up on every device to the left. And it has connectivity to 300 data sources. Now they're adding more all the time. I think the number is closer to 320 right now, matter of fact. And if there's a component or a data source that you want to use that isn't there, you can also add that as well. So for example, in our organization, there's not a QuickBooks data source yet. So it's a RESTful API though for QuickBooks Online. So we use that to basically connect to our QuickBooks environment. So most of the components you can find out of the box. I'll show you where you can find them in a moment here also. However, if it's not there, you can also add it as well. Now, some of these connectors, by the way, aren't just things like SQL Server and Oracle and SharePoint. There are also connectors for cloud systems like Salesforce.com and things like Facebook or Twitter, or an email connector that allows you to read emails and create calendar invites. There's also one for texting people. So these connectors aren't just for reading data. They're also connectors for pushing and reading data that way as well. All right. Lastly, this allows you to connect to things like the common data services, which we'll talk about in a moment, and you can build this logic with very little coding experience. You don't have to be a coder to build Power Apps. That's the whole goal here. So I mentioned common data services, which the new name is actually called Dataverse. So I'll use it synonymously today because there are a lot of parallels between those two pieces there. So Dataverse, when you think about when you want to build an app tomorrow, the first thing you need to do is I need to have some place to actually store this data. Today you're going to use my database, my SQL Server database in my cloud to actually build your application today. However, what about if you want to build a fresh new application in your own environment? So you might stand up a SQL Server database. You might stand up a SharePoint list perhaps. There's a whole bunch of options you have. One of those options is actually called the Dataverse, or Common Data Services. This is a whole set of pre-built tables for you, and you can also extend those tables that allow you to have a whole bunch of plumbing. It is basically a SQL Server database, by the way, guys. So it gives you access to all the advantages of SQL Server, including actually connecting to it in Management Studio or in Visual Studio and all that. However, it also gives you a lot of plumbing. Things like row-level security, things like doing, like who created the record, when was it created, I want to attach files. All that plumbing is all built in to the Dataverse, so you don't have to go and build it. As a matter of fact, there's also a whole bunch of pre-built tables. So tables like contacts and companies are accounts, but those pieces are already there for you as well, because every application has customers typically, right? So our contacts, and it has users, all that stuff is all there. A question we're getting asked over and over again, by the way, is this session being recorded? Yep, we're on YouTube. So again, you can pause me, you can replay me, and this is being recorded for future posterity as well. All right. So where does Power Apps squarely fit for this? So, for example, this is good for those, Power Apps is perfect use case for those line of business applications that are clouding your environment that you wish you would actually build, that you don't have time to build. So for example, we have this application called our CMS application. This application is a terrible application. When you're a junior developer at Pragmatic Works, the first thing we do is we say, welcome to the company, here's your tax forms, here's your onboarding package, and here's a CMS application. We'll see you in 2 months. This application has grown over the years to where it has an arm sticking out of its head. It's got all these things kind of, it's a terrible application, I'll be honest. So, but this is a core application to run Pragmatic Works. It handles our commissions, it handles our classes, our order processing, all that junk that made sense 13 years ago to build. We were able to retrofit that and build that in Power Apps and completely transform it in about 3 to 4 days. So 90% of the functionality we were able to replace in about 4 days. And the last 10% took us about 2 more weeks. So it took us 13 years to build it and 4 days to basically rebuild it. But now anybody can support it at Pragmatic Works. Nobody wanted to touch a CMS. It was a scary application. Now this Power App is very, very easy to, it's not fragile anymore, right? Anybody can support it. All the errors are being logged accordingly. Security is all handled, and it works on your phone, your tablet, on your PC, so our Mac or whatever you have. So that's the nice thing about Power Apps, and that's where it squarely fits. This is not going to replace the developer. So if you're a .NET developer, Java developer, whatever developer you are, Power Apps is not a replacement for you. Power Apps is an augmentation for you. Just like you still need a data warehouse, well, there's still Power BI. Power BI makes building reports much easier, but in many cases, data warehouses still make sense. And in many cases, your coding is going to make sense in .NET also. Okay, so we're going to be building a Canvas application today, and there are 3 types of applications you can build. One is a Canvas application, and Canvas applications allow you to connect to almost any data source you want. You can mash that data together. You can create code without having to create code. It's super, super simple to do. You don't need a whole bunch of coding experience. Matter of fact, the most code we're going to write today is maybe 2 or 3 lines of code. You'll see that code in the description, by the way. Additionally, it works on any device. So once you build it, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about, is this going to work on an iPhone properly or an Android properly? It just works. Now, I mentioned it can connect to 300 data sources. These sources are cloud sources or on-prem sources. If you do have on-prem data, just like Power BI, you can communicate with the on-prem data gateway to do that. That gateway allows you to basically go into your on-prem environment and get data out of a SQL Server on-prem or a Excel spreadsheet on-prem or whatever you might have. A few things about that. If you are doing an on-prem data source, it is going to be slower because think about what's happening here. You are taking data that might be on-prem, so you're on-prem right now, right? And you're going to the cloud for Power Apps. Then you're going to go drill back to on-prem, then go from that on-prem server, on-prem data gateway, to the back-end server, and then back again. So that extra hop or two can slow you down. So just a quick heads up on those pieces. So let me get rid of that there. Excuse me. There we go. It's decided to time out there. That's okay. All right. So just a few pieces of word warning. So I've seen in some cases a $50 version of Azure, for example, $50 a month Azure SQL Server database outperform a $50,000 SQL Server on-prem. So just a quick few warnings on that piece. It does work. You do have almost complete feature parity, but on-prem data sources can slow things down. So that's one of the biggest differences between a Canvas app and the other 2 types of apps. A Canvas app allows you to connect to 300 sources. Now, the other type of application is called a model-driven application. So let me kind of show you what these look like first of all. I'm going to hop out real quick. This is an example of the Canvas app that we're going to build today. This application here is a well-check application, and by the end of the day, your app will look something like this. Okay, so I'll be able to search for a patient here like Charlie. All right. Okay. Ooh, it's connecting to my SQL Server now. Let me actually search for somebody else here. All right. Extra bonus points for who can tell me who this guy is right here. Matt Peterson here. All right, who this guy is over here in the chat window. All right. Or I also have, for those old school people, who is that person? All right, so this is our Canvas application. A few things this gives me. I'm connecting to a SQL Server database. These are all tables I'm pulling from. This is pixel perfect kind of view of the data here. I can go through and select somebody, do a new assessment, and it kind of walks me through doing assessment of Richard Bush in this case. Okay, that's a Canvas application. When I open up Power Apps, there's also another type of application called a model-driven app. Let me kind of scroll into this real quick, and I'll find my model-driven app. Oh, there we go. And there's okay, there we go. I'm looking for my model, there it is, contract routing. Here we go. This is an example of a model-driven app. Now, these are quite a bit different than the Canvas app. Oh, come on, don't sign me out now. That's just wrong. All right, it's a good idea to close my browser. No, it's not. Let me try that one more time. There we go. Okay. So with a Canvas application, I'll do my two-form authentication here. I apologize, guys. It has to look at my ugly face real quick. There you go, and there we go. All right, so a model-driven app and a portal app, the other 2 types of applications, require that you have common data services or Dataverse. So all the data you're looking at right here is in the Dataverse. Now, this is not pixel perfect. I can build these model-driven apps very, very quickly. But the biggest difference here is I start with the data model first. I built a contract request table inside of Dataverse. I built a vendor table in Dataverse. And once I do that, I can go in and actually create a new record. I have this whole option right here. Look at this option. I have these little whistle stops here where I can see to get me from this stage in the contract to this stage in the contract, what am I missing right here? I have a $60 million contract. Let me go ahead and reduce that number and watch my bubbles here. So I need a CFO approval and a CPO approval here. If I make that a $500 contract and click outside, I lost my approvals for those 2 people. So those are some of the things you have. You have this is called business process engines right here. You also have the plumbing over here when I select this, you can see a lot of the plumbing. Oh, it actually got rid of it. When I hit this little plus button here, you can see a lot of the plumbing right here for adding notes and attachments. All that plumbing comes over for free by using the Dataverse with this model-driven app here. Okay, you have your tabs and all those kind of things, and you also get nice business rules that if I say, all right, if I turn this to yes, it says, oh, you also need to get a PO request for this now. So it has those types of things in this as well. This is a model-driven application. This requires a Dataverse, so no 300 connectors this time, but it gives you a lot of plumbing, a lot of stuff out of the box here. You can even go through it. I'm looking at a vendor, for example, like this guy, a lot of commercial real estates, and I can go to related, and I can hop over there and see, all right, well, what type of request do I have for this person, or what are I have a whole bunch of things I can hop out to basically and look at. So that's a model-driven app. The last one is a portal application. Let me go and search for my portal that I built last night. All right, this is the Pawnee School Board. Oh, all right, Brian, let's see, Brian got some Gary Busey, yep, and Joel. That's a very fun man. All right, so here we go. This is a portal application. This is the third type of application that there is in the Power Apps family. The goal of a Power App portal is to say, all right, I don't want to license every single person that's on the phone right now. There's over 1,000 people right now watching this webinar. I don't want 1,000 of you guys right now to have to go ahead and get a license of Power Apps to use my application. So a Power App portal is another example of that. So in this case, what we can see is I'm going to go ahead and sign in. So I'll go a quick sign in here. That's fine. I'll use Azure AD, but I can also sign with LinkedIn, with Twitter, with Facebook. I can actually sign in with my own account here as well. This application is like WordPress. It is a website. So in this case, if I go to Contract Web Form right now, you'll see that it walks me through a wizard, which is basically a model-driven wizard, to do a contract request here. In this case, I'm actually asking for COVID assistance in this case. So when I hit next, every step along the way as I do this, this wizard will say how far am I in the wizard, and am I a resident? Okay, so just a little mock-up I built last night. All right, who's the applicant for this? It's Brian Knight. All right, I am the tenant. And because I'm going to say I want utilities request here, and I hit next, it's going to ask for my utility bills now. So that's one of the nice things about this right here. I'm going to type my company, upload my pictures. I'm going to go back again though and check this out. If I say I don't have utility bill and hit next, it'll show me a different screen. Now it's asking for my ID now, and it jumped me through the hoops here, and now it's asking for my ID. This is a portal application. Now portal applications have some really cool approaches to it. A portal application allows you, for example, for the county that Mitch and I live in, as well as Matt, when COVID first hit, there was a lot of issues with the government was trying to give money to people that needed assistance. And for my county, for example, for them to build an application to allow people to request access, they were looking at 2 to 3 months to build that application out. We built a Power App portal in beta stage in a weekend, and in production, it was up in about 2 weeks. So in 1 to 2 weeks, they were in production and able to accept requests for COVID relief. So they didn't have to license everybody for Power Apps. They simply licensed the capacity of how many people they thought they were going to have coming into the system. So those are some of the things you can do. Oh, I said Max says hi. Thank you, Max, for shout out to Max there as well. So portals can deliver a lot of people, a lot of applications to a lot of people, and you're only licensing the capacity. So it's $100 for 100,000 views, and then you pay based on how many people log in a day. So that's kind of the knobs you turn in Power Apps portals. Now, if you do 100,010 views one month all of a sudden, it's not that the server's going to crash all of a sudden. It's just going to slow down. They've scaled that server for 100,000 views or 100 logins a day. So if you exceed that, it's not going to break, but it will give some issues. Okay? So those are the 3 app types. Again, we had the Canvas app, which we're doing today, a model-driven app, which we saw over here, okay, and then a portal app, which you saw over here. Portals and model-driven require common data services, or our Dataverse, where the Canvas app that we'll be building today does not. It can have 300 data sources, including the Dataverse. Okay? So let's go back to our slides again and kind of wrap up our slides here for the day. And There we go. All right, so we mentioned it's cross-platform. So even though you have a Mac or even though I have a PC, it doesn't matter. All these apps will work cross-platform from day one. And it has a whole bunch of governance built into this as well. So if you go through and you want to see who logged into the app, when they logged in, and you want to find out what kind of errors are bubbling up in the environment, you can easily do that with Canvas applications or any application in Power Apps. So you know who ran it, when they ran it. You can show and hide screens based on security. All that capability is all built in. So there's an admin center that your IT administrator will use to lock down things. It also has a whole bunch of developer-centric things where you can promote the application from environment to environment to environment. So dev to QA to prod, or Brian's environment to dev to QA to prod. Additionally, if you are a developer, you can build a custom component. You can integrate that and share it with other people, and then you can deploy that application back and forth. So lots of neat stuff you can do where you have one component that you can use across dozens, if not hundreds, of applications. You can, if you wanted to, also be an ISV, an independent software vendor, and build applications and distribute those applications that way as well. So there are lots of capabilities. The biggest caveat, you got to make sure people are licensed to use Power Apps for those model-driven or Canvas apps, because I'm licensing it by person in those cases. All right, enough slides. So for the rest of this 2.5 hours or so, we are going to jump into getting your hands super dirty. We're going to build an application from the ground up on Power Apps, and we're going to build this application you saw a moment ago. So we'll build it from step by step. A few things to note. You don't have to do this demo with me if you don't want, so don't get frustrated if your environment does not work. The people in the chat are trying their hardest, but there's a good chance that they may not be able to keep up with all the questions. There are well over 1,000 people on the phone this right now. So the code that I'll be using, the connection strings, the code, all that, look in the description of this video, down below me, I guess, in many cases, and you may want to go through and copy and paste that into your notepad. Grab the whole description, just go get it all, and copy and paste that in Notepad, because you're going to want to get chunks of that code later. Okay, Matt Peterson, who's in the chat window, is also going to be pasting the code as we use it into the chat window as well. But again, I do speak fast. I recognize that. We have an international audience right now. So you are more than welcome to pause me, and we're going to have a 15-minute break about half past the top of the hour, next hour. So if you that gives you a chance to kind of catch up during that break if you do happen to pause me. All right, so let's begin, guys. So that was my last slide. Let me go open up my browser here. And there's a few things you're going to find in the description of this. Matt, if you don't mind pasting in the cheat sheet link. The first link you're going to find, if you just Google or Bing Power Apps cheat sheet, okay? The Power Apps cheat sheet gives you a lot of the coding that we'll be using throughout today. So, first thing we'll see, if I scroll down, here's all the common code. We built this cheat sheet for you guys today to be able to kind of copy and paste and use later. So down here are some of the common expressions that we'll be using today. So most of these we'll be using in this class today, and we'll review the ones we aren't using a little bit later. As we kind of go up here, I'll kind of go opposite direction here. The first one is the license explainer video. So if you're curious about the licensing of Power Apps, that licensing, it can be found right here. We have a link to it as well. There's also some color guides. So as you're doing color, you're trying to figure out what color matches my color. If you're a little bit not a very UI guy like me, I'm not a UI guy. If you're like me and you can't distinguish colors, you know, if your wife is constantly picking the colors and the paint and all that, the color guide here is an awesome one for doing that. Let me show you what I mean. This one is called Color Hex, and what it does for you, if I say, all right, I like this color, what else matches it? All right, here we go. As I scroll down, we'll see the RGB colors we'll be using, and then you'll also be able to see what colors match that color to go well in that shade as well. So what would be some good accent colors you can use and all that. So this is a great website for kind of poking around there. Next one are some slides from a similar session we do. It's called App in a Day. Additionally, there is another beginner video that walks you through this. My YouTube playlist is right here that has about 80 videos on Power Apps. Okay, again, this is the cheat sheet. I'll paste into your chat window here as well, just in case. Additionally, there is a recording for a previous video we did for App in a Day. It's a full day class. If you go here, it's going to talk about registering and all that, but there are about 6 classes you'll find here: App in a Day, Virtual Agent Day, Analytics in a Day, Modern Excel Analyst in a Day, and there's also Dashboard in a Day. All those classes are forever for free. So even though it's having you register, there's no credit card, none of that kind of mess. It's forever for free, and that gives you 60 other classes for 6 days, or 7 days, excuse me. That's the recordings right here. Lastly, what I want you guys to do, you'll find in the link right here, you can go and click on the free community license right here. And if you click on that, again, I'm going to put this in your cheat sheet also, or in your URL here. All right, this is going to walk you through how do I create a trainer license, a trainee license for Power Apps. This is going to give you a free Power Apps license in your environment. Now, the few things to note here. The first thing to note is, in many cases, your company may prohibit you from doing this. So, when you click on this button that you're seeing right here, create an individual environment, this button may fail for about 30% of you guys. And that's okay. Don't worry. This is not required for today in any ways. But I want to give you a little present here today, and a little kind of hidden secret of Microsoft here is we can click on this. It'll ask you what country you're in and your name. All right, there we go. Recognizes I'm signed in as my company. And when I hit accept, a few things are going to happen. Okay. Now the next step, and Matt might be pasting those the steps into the chat window also. A few things are going to happen now. The first thing is it's going to start spinning up an environment for me inside of Power Apps, okay, inside of my company. So when I do that, the first thing I do when I come to this screen right here, which is make.powerapps.com, I'm going to reload my browser, and if it did work, it might take about 5 minutes in some cases, okay? So just a word of warning, it might not show up here, but then come back later. If it does work, you'll be able to see it over here, and it will say like Brian Knight's environment. Oh, well, for some reason Zoom, it's not working on that. So you'll see Brian Knight's environment right here on the side, okay? You'll also see your company's environment. And an environment is essentially a collection of users, of apps, of Power Automate flows, of Power Virtual Agents. It's a collection of all that. So what this environment basically gives you is your own personal dev server inside of your company. Okay, so again, the steps where Matt has in your chat window right now, you'll refresh your browser after this, and you might see your name, environment. Okay, so that's one of the, hopefully that will work for you. If it does not work, don't worry, it's not needed for today. Okay, so the only restriction behind this environment right here, by the way, is you cannot share applications. Because this is Brian Knight's environment, it's my personal environment, you cannot share those apps out. So this is just for you only. The other restriction is something called data flows, which are right here, are going to be disabled also. Data flows give you the ability to import data into the Dataverse. Okay, so that's turned off on purpose because they more than likely don't want you to import things like privacy data inside of it, or your company does not want that, in other words. So those kind of things are some of the big gotchas there. Okay? So a great question that we had up from the audience here about why would I choose we're doing Canvas apps today, but why would I choose those over a model-driven app? Well, if you are investing already inside of Dataverse, then you'll find you can build model-driven apps much faster in many cases. With model-driven apps, you start with the data model, which is over here in our tables, by the way, and then from there, you build the application on top of it. Whether it be a Canvas app or whether it be a model-driven app, you build that on the top of that. A Canvas app might take you about 3 times longer to build, but it gives you some really cool stuff like data agnostic. You have pixel perfect kind of applications. Now this application you saw right here, is really easy for me to build. I built this last night in front of the TV in an hour. So these types of things, the reason why I chose this in this case for this customer is it's a good back office application. It forces them to go through a business process without me having to construct all that. I can construct this in Canvas, but it'll take me a lot longer to do. So if you're already investing in Dataverse, model-driven apps might make sense if you don't care about that pixel perfect. If you're just trying to show list and forms, done. Works great. If you want to get more detailed, then a Canvas app might make more sense. So you'll see more about that as we get deeper into it also. Okay, thank you, Mitch, for calling that one out. All right, so we kind of touched a little bit on licensing a moment ago when we talked about the community license. If you want to find out what kind of licensing you have at your company, here's what you'll do. You'll go to make.powerapps.com. You'll see it up top here. I've got make.powerapps.com up in my browser right here. Now, once you do that, you'll go to the little gearbox that you're seeing in the top right. Oh, that resolution can't quite see that area there, but the little gearbox in the top right. And then, what if I can do it this way? Nope, can't quite reach that area. It's all right. All right, and then you'll hit Plans. So the gearbox in the top right and hit Plans. After you do that, you'll see a list of the licenses that you personally have at your organization. The license we just talked about was the community plan. That community plan gives you a free license to do whatever you want to in Power Apps, including Dataverse, by the way, including portals, by the way. However, you cannot share any of those. That is for your environment for learning Power Apps. The other one you'll see is my Dynamics license that I have right here. This allows me to create unlimited applications inside of my Dynamics environment. So as long as Dynamics is in that environment, I can build as much as I want in there. The one that most of you guys are likely seeing is Power Apps for Office 365. This license gives you the ability to create unlimited applications, but you cannot use premium connections. We'll talk about what a premium connection is first, though. So that premium connection you can find is going to be under Data, at make.powerapps, Data and Connections. And when I go to Data and Connections, I'm going to hit this New Connection button right here. And this is going to allow me to see what connections are premium and which ones are not. So you'll see right here, for example, one of the big premium connections. Oh no, SQL Server. So the premium connections, this cannot be used with the Office 365 license. Okay? Now today though, when we're building this class today, you can use a premium connection because you're just doing it for yourself. It's when you go to share those applications out, it will give you some gripes at that point. Okay, so if you don't have a license of Power Apps that will support that, you can use it today with me, and it's no problem at all. All right, you'll also see, by the way, Common Data Services requires a premium connection right there, and there's some other ones like Salesforce and those kind of things. There are a lot of connections that do not require a premium connection. So that leads to the question is, where in the heck should I put my data? Okay, I have an Office 365 license, and I got to put my data somewhere. I can't use SQL Server, so what are my options? All right, so your best option for small data sets is likely going to be SharePoint. Okay, the SharePoint license, it's not a database. Keep in mind, SharePoint is not a database. That's a mantra we have to tell all of our students. SharePoint is not a database. SharePoint is not a database. Whatever, all right? We gotta store our data somewhere, right? So typically speaking, if you have less than 5,000 rows, SharePoint might make sense because it does not require a premium license of Power Apps. Okay? Now you can go as many as 30 million records in a SharePoint database list, or SharePoint list. I don't want to use the word database there. However, if it takes a long time to, if you have more than 5,000 rows, some restrictions start. If you have more than 20,000 rows, more restrictions start, and then things are locked down at that point. So you can go well above 20,000 rows, but your lists start getting we'll use a Scooby-Doo term, a little hinky, right? They get a little nutty at that point. So it is not meant for scalable data systems. Once you go into the thousands of rows or hundreds of thousands of rows or millions of rows, SQL Server makes sense in most cases. SQL Server is a cheap data source if you put that data in Azure. You're probably looking at the starting cost is like $15 a month for 250 gigs of data That's for storing the data. Now you also need a powerapps license to do that as well at that point. Okay? But SharePoint does work above 5,000 rows, but it does give you some limitations as soon as you cross those limits I mentioned before. Okay? So for large data sets, Common Data Services or SQL Server is probably your best bet in those two cases. Okay? So that's where you'll need a license of powerapps. Back in that cheat sheet, I had a link to the powerapps license. If I go back to that cheat sheet one more time, powerapps cheat sheet, there we go, and there it is. All right, one of the first links at the bottom here is powerapps licensing. Here's where the licensing comes in. If I want to get a premium license, you pay based on the capacity. So it's either $10 per user a month per app, or if I want to get unlimited apps for that user, it's $40. This is retail price, keep in mind, and that retail price does change quite often. They're actually experimenting with new prices right here, where if you have a lot of users, you can get down to $3 per app per user, or $12 instead of $40. So right now, so there's a little sale up top until June, but there are some minimums on that. If you scroll to the bottom, this is where it might make sense to do powerapps portals. So I have a school system, and I want to license every parent at my school system to use my applications to enroll students in after-school programs. I don't want to license every parent times $10 or even $3 for that matter. So instead, I could actually license a Power App portal for about $300 a month, which is about what it costs to have a web server up, right? And then you basically license it based on how much scale you want to do. Okay? So this right here, you can license for one user, and then it scales up to however many users you want. Up here, this requires, right now, I think it's like 200 users to get the sale price. You'll see it in the little footnote right here. It has all the descriptions of that. Okay? Question about, good question here I see in the chat window about the Dataverse. Dataverse comes with Power Apps also, by the way, and you can connect to it just like you do a SQL Server database. So Power BI can connect to it for real-time analytics, and Power Apps then can consume that same data. So it's really, really nice. Each environment that you have inside of your company, each of these environments that you're seeing right here, has its own Dataverse database, potentially. You have 0 or 1 database. All right, so great questions coming in. Thank you, Matt, for doing your best to answer those. All right, so with that now done, let's go through and let's try building our first connection. All right, so to do this first connection, I'm going to go back to that make.powerapps.com page, and I'll put that in your chat window real quick. There it is. Okay. Once you have that, you're going to want to create the connection that we're going to use for today. That connection can be found under Data and Connections. Let me zoom in a little closer. So I'm going to go to Data and Connections. Okay. And once I go to Data and Connections, you'll see a list of connections that might be in your company. Now, if you're not seeing this, there's a few things that might break here. Some companies are going to prohibit you from using a SQL Server connection. Okay, so you might find, based on your environment, they might prohibit you from doing that. Okay, so that's one gotcha. If it doesn't work, no worries. You didn't expect to be doing this with me today anyway, so no worries at all. Okay, but if it does work, that's great. Let's see if it works together here. All right, so based on the environment, they may have set some policies up to prohibit you. It's called data loss prevention policies from doing this. Additionally, if you just created your own personal environment, this screen might be a little slow at first also, okay, because they're still spinning the environment up. All right, so I'm going to go to my environment that I want to be in, so make sure you choose the right environment. I'm in my mock-up environment right now, and I went to Connections, and I'm going to hit this under Data and Connections. I'm going to hit New Connection. Okay. All right, after I do that, I'm going to select SQL Server. Matt, would you mind pasting in the chat window the connection information that we're about to use here? So I'm going to go ahead and use my SQL Server connection. There we go. Now in your chat window, Matt is hopefully pasting in some information about creating this connection. And I'm going to follow the steps that's in your chat window. You'll also find it in the description of this video. So if either way, it works out beautifully. I'm going to go and select SQL Server Authentication. All right. Then I'll type in the name of the server. You're going to use my server name right now, which Matt, I see Matt just pasted that in, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. Thank you, Matt. Let's do pragmaticworks.database. Now there's a little bit of you may want to go into Notepad here. All right, so I'll just type it in. pragmaticworks.database.windows.net. Again, it's in your chat window, or it's also in the description of this video. All right, the database name is called demo. The number one mistake we see people make here is they forget to scroll down. The username is demo user, and the password is case sensitive. It's demo with a capital D, user with a capital D. Demo with a capital D, excuse me. PW with each of those are capitalized, and then 1, 2, 3. Demo PW 1, 2, 3. Again, capital D and a capital PW and the number 1, 2, 3. Again, it's in your chat window. I'm going to hit create. And it's going to create a new connection for me. Now this is where if your company prohibits you from using SQL Server, it might have failed in that example. So just a quick heads up, it might have given you grief around that. So additionally, it might, if you have any kind of problems like that, it might open, Matt is actually kind enough to paste that in. Thank you, Matt. All right, cool. So the workaround for that, some of the questions people ask about, they're locked out, is you can use your own personal environment if you were able to create one. If you were not, you can go back to that community plan and create your own personal tenant also. That's an option you have as well. So there's a few little things you can do like that to kind of play around with. Matt, also, if you don't mind, could you paste in the PVA user as well that people can use to get around any kind of issues as well? So we have a user in my environment you can use. Matt's going to paste that in the chat window as well. It may take a few minutes for him to paste that in. So in your chat window, this will only be active for the next 2 weeks though. So if you're watching this recording and it's not February of 2021, then that username password that he's pasting in for my environment will not work, okay? All right, so hopefully that gives you a workaround though if you were not. Oh, I see a lot of people are connected though. That's great, awesome. Okay, so cool. So now we're ready to go ahead and build our first application. We're gonna build 2 apps today. One app we're gonna build is with the wizard. Now this wizard application allows you to create an application very, very quickly without having to do all the work. So it'll create the basic screens to create, read, update, and delete records for one table. Now you can add more tables later if you want to, more SharePoint lists, whatever you want to do. That's one option. That's the wizard option. We'll be able to build that application out in no time. All right, the other option you can do is to build it from scratch. And we're going to do that also today as well. We'll start that process before break as well. But we're going to use the wizard to create a quick application in under 5 minutes, so just so we can walk through the environment and see how things all interconnect, okay? So to do that, I'm going to start by going back to the home area again, okay? All right, thank you, Matt, for pasting in that username password. That's Mitch that's doing that, thank you. And once we do that, again, feel free to pause me. I know I'm going, some of you guys are trying to catch up, and that's okay. Just pause me, and you'll catch up when you can. Once we do that, to build our first application from scratch, which will require almost no work at all, if you were able to create the connection, again, first step, make sure you're in the same environment that you created the connection in. I'm at make.powerapps.com, which we're going to go back to 100 million times a day. Then I'm going to hit this area here to start from scratch. This is all the wizard-based stuff. There's also some templates in here which are great, but they take more wiring up than you may care about. Okay? So I'm going to go to this SQL Server right here, this red icon that start from data. Hit the red icon. It's then going to ask me what connection do I want to use. Well, I have a connection that we just created a moment ago that begins with demo right here. All right, so there it is, demo right there. So that demo connection we're going to use there is the connection we'll be using, and that's the connection you just created. Okay, so I'll select that demo connection, demo pragmaticworks.database.window.net, and the table I want to communicate with is contract vendor. Okay, so sorry, I apologize, not contract vendor. It's going to be nursing facilities. Nursing facilities. All right, now this nursing facility, this is going to be a throwaway application. So if you do not build this application, no worries. We're going to build this for 5 minutes and then move on to the real highlight of the show, building an app from scratch. All right, so we're going to use this nursing facility table in my demo connection, and then I'll hit connect. Now this is going to create a phone-based application, connects on your bottom right. All right, so Matt has just shared my secret credentials. All right, these credentials that he just put in the chat window are for those of you who cannot create my SQL Server connection, okay, and you cannot get any kind of workaround. In this case, open an incognito window, and you'll use my username password to sign into my environment at make.powerapps.com. And Matt, if you don't mind, the password I think is test@word1, I think that's the password. Confirm that for me though, if you don't mind. So Matt has pasted that in there for you. And just as you build these applications on my environment though, just put your name in front of it so that way you don't interfere with somebody else who's building in the same application. Okay, so Matt is pasting all that information in one more time. All right, so you can either use your own environment with my database credentials. Those passwords will not change. So if you are using my credentials, don't worry at all that you're good. You can actually you can use this in 2 years from now and you'll still be able to use my database. All right, so here we go. So this is a list of nursing facilities in our application that we're going to use today. So first step, we built that application in what, 30 seconds basically, right? And pretty darn snazzy. Once we've done that, we can go through and actually kind of play our application. Now, this application is not perfect. It's not what I want yet. Don't worry, we're going to fix it. But let's start and preview our application first. This designer is a web designer first, so everything we do is on the web. So I'm going to hit the play button that you'll see in your top right area. Okay, that play button allows you to preview the application. And when I hit that play button, there we go. Now we can see that there's some things that are a little off right now. My facility name is Bob's Backyard, okay? I should see that as a title instead of the subtitle here. So we want to fix that eventually also. But what I can do is I can hit the little plus button. Oh, by the way, if you are using my environment, the connection has already been created. So you don't have to do the same steps over again to create that. All right, so in my case though, I can hit this little plus button on the top right. I can go ahead and create a new one. Now, the funnier the better, guys. Now, this is a public database, so be PG-13. But the funnier the facility you create, the better prizes for the special prizes for the biggest laugh we get today. Okay, but this is a public database, so don't go too obscene. Okay, so my administrator name is going to be Chucky. All right, my description will be Chucky's basement. All right, this is my nursing facility. Oh, basement, sorry, can't spell today. Oh, sorry, is amazing, whatever. And then my facility name will be Chucky's basement. Okay, cool. And when I hit go, there we go. You'll notice that Chucky's basement, there it is, right there. Chucky's basement's here. Now, also, as I do this, I can hit refresh and I can see that, oh, there we go. We're starting to see you guys entering data now as well. So as I hit this little refresh button right here, I'm seeing more and more people. Actually, Raphael just created one, Panama, looks like. Hello, Raphael. I've got a cancer treatment facility right here. So you guys are starting to create these facilities right now. There we go. Happy. We've got some interesting keyboard ones there. Larry the Cable Guy, I like that one. Get her done. All right, very, very good. So you guys have some interesting ones. But we're noticing that things are a little out of order right now. So this is how we can kind of fix these things here. Oh, I love this, guys. All right. So to fix this, we're going to start building our application a little bit and kind of tweaking it. So the first tweak we can do is we can look at our application, and when I select this is called a gallery on the right, which is showing all the rows right here. When I select my second or third row, don't pick your first row, but when I pick my second or third row, which picks the entire gallery, I'll notice that it has fields on the right. This is the properties pane on the right. I can hit this little properties pane on the right and hit edit fields. And when I do that, we can go through and specify, well, what do you want to show in the title? Well, I'd prefer to show the facility name on the title, so I can kind of scroll down, pick facility name. For the body, I'll actually put the administrator name, and I'll leave my description in the subtitle. All right, so you can do whatever you want to do that. It's okay, we're going to throw this application away, so it's okay. As I make these changes, look what's happening. So we're starting to see your smart aleck responses. Bob's backyard. Okay, there we go. Abraham's asylum. All these things are starting to come in right now. And you guys are awesome. Love it. All right, we got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of new facilities. Awesome. You guys are right there with me. This is the best example because it shows me you guys are actually with me right now building your first application. All right, so this is a way you can kind of reorder things. Likewise, you can do the same thing in the form. So if I happen to look at my form here, I'm going to hit the play button. I'm going to go to this Alcatraz Island, for example. Pick anybody you want. I'll hit this little pencil icon, and if I want to reorder this, which to make it more sense, I'm going to hit the escape key to get out of preview mode. Okay, that preview mode gets me in right here. Escape key gets you out, or you hit the little X to get out. Now, if you want to reorder this is a form to enter data. And I can hit edit fields again, just like we did last time. And this time, if I want to put the facility name up top, I'll just drag it, drop it, and now facility name is up top. It's that simple. All right, so I'll hit the play button again to get out, and then I'll hit the little X button to go back to the main screen and kind of look around. It looks like you guys are doing pretty well here. We have hundreds of new guys here, it looks like. Okay, so awesome job. So now that we've done that, our next step is we want to go through and kind of show the rest of the environment off. All right, so we showed you a few things. This right here, by the way, is a gallery. We showed you how to preview the app already, and we showed you the properties pane. Now, additionally, if you don't want to have to hit that preview button every single time, go in, go out, go in, go out, you can actually hold down the Alt key and click on these arrows, and we can actually look at Chicago Bears sad face and go back and forth, and kind of, while I'm holding down the Alt key, we can kind of look around and see and interact with the application. Okay, so that's a way of kind of quickly going into the application. I'm laughing at some of these ones I'm seeing here. Anyways, I love it, guys. You guys stayed PG-13. I'm very proud of you guys. Thank you for keeping it a little bit more PG-13. All right. So, additionally, that's how we can kind of interact with the gallery. The other rule here is this gallery is one of the few ways of seeing the data. If I scroll to the very top here, wow, a lot of data here, and I look at my first row here, which is Painesville, and I click on the arrow. Notice I can kind of move this arrow around, and when I pick the first record, you have to have the first record selected. When I do that, as I move this arrow around, every row underneath it also reflects that as well and moves as well. Additionally, if I pick the second row, it picks the entire gallery. So your first row is the template. So this gallery is one way of showing data. There's two ways: the gallery, and there's also going to be a data table. Galleries are much more flexible than data tables. Data tables are much more like a Excel spreadsheet, basically. But galleries, all right. In Gallery Club, there are two rules. The first rule is nobody talks about it because nobody cares about Gallery Club. But the second rule is you always pick the first row to modify the cell, to modify the template, or the second row, or any row after, will modify the whole gallery properties. Okay, so those are the two quick things that people need to know about galleries. All right, so just an example of that. If I pick this first row and I pick this arrow, for example, and I drop in, I'll go to Insert, I'll drop a button in, for example. It will put it on every row because I had the first row selected. I'm going to hit the delete key to get rid of it. If I have the whole gallery selected and I hit the button, it then puts only one button in. Okay, so that's how you can kind of get around that kind of weirdness that you might see. All right, additionally, what we can do is you'll notice that we have in the tree view on the left, and if you ever lose it, you can always get it back by hitting this little cascade button on the left here. That's tree view. All right, that tree view shows you all the controls that are available to you in Power Apps that you've actually created. So this wizard has created 3 screens: a browse screen, a detail screen, and an edit screen for doing insert and edits, okay, and updates. So additionally, when I select this whole gallery right here, we can change properties in 3 different locations. One of those locations is up in the home ribbon here, and we can say, let's change the fill color of that to some light gray, for example. Just for whim here, or some light blue. I'm a blue guy myself. That's too dark. There we go. All right, that's one option we can do. The second option we can do is I could also change it by hitting the property pane on the right here. So in the property pane, when the gallery is selected, if I scroll down, you'll see color right here. I can change it that way. Okay, so it's synonymous. You do what works for you, though, and what works best for you. The third option is to select the whole gallery. And if I go to the property drop-down box right here, this is the property drop-down box. Keep in mind, that's a very important drop-down box. We're going to use this over and over again today. Once you select it, you go to your coding window, and you can type in whatever color you want. In this case, an RGB color. So I'll type in like white smoke, for example, and it turns it that light gray color. Okay, so that's a few little gotchas around that. Let's go ahead and save our application next. So I'll go to File and Save. Call it whatever you want. I want to put my initials in front of it so I don't break anybody else's application. And I'm going to call this just, throwaway application. All right, I'm going to put a little whatever color you want to on it, whatever icon you want. You make it your own. It's all good. I'm under File and Save, but when I went to File and Save, it also dropped me into Settings to do all this other stuff. Then I'll go to Save, and I can go ahead and call it whatever. Okay, Brian's throwaway application. I'm saving it in my environment. I'll hit Save button. Now here's why I'm having you save. Of course, you want to save pretty frequently. Okay, because we are in a web environment, things go hinky sometimes, right? So I'm going to hit the back button, but make sure you pick this back button and not the URL back button. And when I do that, let's make some kind of trivial change here. I'm going to go ahead and make my background some hideous color here. All right, let's go this red color here. I'm doing something ungodly, bad color here, just so we can notice that something's gone wrong. I'm going to hit now Control S to save. It's a shortcut that you want to memorize. Now that you've done that, I have two versions of the application. Every time you save, it's going to version control your application for you. So it makes that really, really easy. So if I go over to the File menu now, you'll notice my save has now become a Publish area. So just for goodwill here, I'm going to hit the See All Versions to show you what it looks like. You don't have to do this. You can just kind of walk with me here. I'm going to hit See All Versions. Now, how you can get here if you don't go this way, by the way, you can also get here by going over to Power Apps, picking whatever app you want, and you go to Details here. This is businessmake.powerapps.com. You go to your whatever app you want, hit Details, it just takes you to the same exact screen. Here is, first of all, is a URL and the Details tab of how people can interface with this. Okay. We can also go to Versions here, and we can see there's two versions of the application. So if I select this URL here, look what happens. All right. All right, when I select that URL, we're seeing the old color, not the bad color of the application. And so for some reason, this does not look right, right? So if I go back to my versions here, we can see that right now, version 1 is live. So every time you save, it's going to save a new version of the app. Now I can hit the Publish button in that previous screen, or I can hit this little checkbox here and hit Publish this version. When I do that, about 30 seconds or so later, every phone, every device, and my own link that I had up here earlier will now refresh, and I'll have the new version of this app. So this is allowing you to have automated version control up to 6 months of versions that you can always roll back from if you wish. So when I look at this, if I hit refresh now, we should hopefully see that terrible color. Yep, there we go. The brown's color here. We're seeing a terrible color here with all your different areas here. Okay, so that is how we can do version control. One of the ways of doing version control in Power Apps. Okay, it does have integration later. We can talk about into things like Azure DevOps and those kind of things also. So congratulations, you built your first application. This is a small application, but now we're going to get into the hard stuff, the fun stuff. We're going to build one from an app from scratch right now. And the app, you've already had the facilities in here. Now we're going to build a way of actually having our patients, our nurses, do well checks for those patients. So let's go back to make.powerapps.com. You might also see that you have that tab already open and up in your browser as well. You might have two tabs. You might have your old app here, okay, right here, excuse me, and then you might have your old tab right here. However you want to get there, you want to go back to make.powerapps.com. Make sure you're in the same environment as your previous data connection. After you do that, we're going to hit Create a Canvas app from blank this time. Okay, And when we do that this time, let's make sure it's a tablet app. Make sure you do not select phone. It's hard to change later. You can change the size and all and make it responsive, but it is a little hard to change later. A few notes about this. This is a tablet app, means it works on all devices, including phones, by the way. Just because it says tablet, it just means it's going to flip it horizontally, and it's going to scale up. It's going to be a lot more surface area to play with. We can also make apps responsive as well, but in this case, this is an easy way to kind of do this. So we'll go ahead and call this app, I'll call this just Brian Welchek app. Okay, put your name in front of it so you don't interfere with somebody else if you're in my environment, and then I'll hit create. Okay. So now that we've done that, let's see how we can build this app. Now typically speaking, we're going to build this app from scratch, and this is going to be you see our only screen right now is called screen 1. Blank screen. We would typically change the name of that, of course. You can change the name by double-clicking on it and call it whatever you want. I don't use spaces in Power Apps for this kind of stuff, because otherwise you have to put single ticks around everything. It becomes really difficult. So let's try to stay away from spaces on these control names. Okay? I typically will put like a 3-digit qualifier, like SCR, and then whatever my name of my screen is. I'll just call this Welchek main or something like that. Okay? So you call it whatever you want. This doesn't matter in this case. You'll find that I have my naming convention, in case you want to adopt one, is back at that cheat sheet again, and you'll see Power Apps naming convention. This will kind of walk you through my naming convention, but you do what works for you. This is what works for me personally, but do what works for you, of course. All right, so now that we've done that, we're now ready to go through and create our first connection. So to create a connection from scratch this time, again, you want to make sure you're in the same environment as you were before. I'm in my mock-up environment in my case. I'm going to hit the database icon on my left, this database icon right here, okay? And then once I do that, once I hit the database cylinder, it's going to be, they've just changed the screen. So some of you guys may not be seeing this screen exactly. That's okay. They roll out new features all the time, and it always happens right when I'm teaching in class. So as of right now, this is what the screen looks like for my region, but it might be a little different in your region. So I'm going to hit the database icon. I'm going to hit Add Data. It's then going to ask you, well, where is your data at? So I'm going to go to Connectors, okay, and I'm going to search for SQL Server. Okay, I'm going to select SQL Server twice. Once for the SQL Server connection type, and then once again for the type of my actual SQL Server connection, which is my demo connection we created earlier. All right. Once you do that, we're going to use 2 tables. We'll use nursing patients and nursing Welchek. Those 2 tables right here. And then we'll hit connect. I'm going to do it one more time for you also, okay? So don't worry. If you missed it, you can always rewind it, but I'm going to do it one more time to make sure you guys have it. This is going to show you now, like, let's imagine I made a mistake and I only checked 1 table and I want to add more tables. No problem. You'll hit Add Data. I'll hit Connectors. And when I have connectors, I'm going to search for SQL Server because it's 300 connectors again. When I select SQL Server, I'll pick my demo connection, and then I'll check my 2 tables and hit connect. Okay, so that's how we'll do that. Again, you can always replay me and watch how to do those steps also. All right, so the tables we want, nursing patient and nursing Welchek. So first step we want to do is I want to go ahead and paste in some code that I want you guys to paste in also. This code is going to show you how to kind of build an app from scratch, kind of the proper way. So we want to kind of create a template that we can use throughout all this. So in your chat window and also in the description of this video is the template code I'm about to use right now. This code is going to create 3 variables. And these variables are the colors that I want to use in my application. I always start this way so I don't have to go through and pick the exact color. Now chances are you're building these apps for business folks, and these business folks are very, very picky about their colors, about their logos, and all those kind of things. So a great question from Rob. I love this question. Can you have multiple connectors in the same application? You can absolutely do that. So by the way, I can hit Add Connectors. This is the Common Data Services right here, our Dataverse. Under Connectors, we can also go to the 300 other connectors, and you can absolutely bring in Salesforce.com as well as SQL Server. So all those things, 300 connectors, are all available to you there. Additionally, additional question there is, where in the heck is that cheat sheet? There it is for you right there also. Thanks for asking that question. And Matt, you are a rock star here, keeping up with all these questions. All right, so now that we've done that, so let's actually use this code. So hopefully you have the code in your chat window. Additionally, it's in the description of this video, okay? And if I go and I'm going to close this data one, I'm going to open up the tree view again by hitting this little cascading paper right here. That opens the tree view mode open, okay? All right. Now when we do that, we'll see that we have only our one screen right now available to us. I'm going to click the word app right here. And this is all the code that runs when the app starts. So you'll see up top here in the property drop-down box is on start. So when the app starts, whatever code I have right here is going to run. I'm going to paste in those 3 lines of code that Matt used earlier. Let me go ahead and grab it from Matt's window right here and your cheat sheet. I'm going to paste in the code. Make sure though, first of all, that you are on the word app. So select the word app. Make sure on start is selected. And then go to your coding window and paste in your code over here. That's step 3 over here. Now, once you do that, the code looks really funny right now. I'm going to hit Format Text to kind of clean that up for me. Okay? Now, a few things about this code. First of all, here's what it's doing here for us. Let me kind of create a little more wiggle room here for us. Look at that. All right, I'm going to just drag this up and down to create wiggle room there if you want. We're on the bar there. So first of all, this code, when I zoom in a little closer, is the set command. This is in your cheat sheet also, and that cheat sheet talks about creating global variables. Global variables give you the ability to create a variable to store some data, to store some names, to store some data, whatever. Store that value and use it over and over and over again across n number of screens in your application. So there's contextual variables that are only one screen, and global variables using a set command that are available on all screens. So I'll select the set command. Then I have var background green. That's the name of my variable. Then I could put the value in it. Don't do this, guys, but the value could be like hello world right here. Okay, that's not what I'm going to do, but you get the idea. But my value in this case happens to be an RGB color, a color of green in my case. This is a healthcare app, so we're doing green. Now, additionally, you'll see if I select the word RGB right here, look what happens. If I just click on that word RGB, it's showing me down below in the coding window what the impact of that word RGB and this color combination is. Look at that. We can see the exact color green that it is. So this bottom area, as you select different words, will always show you helpers. It's going to try at least to show you helpers on what it actually is doing. You'll also notice when I hit the word RGB that it's showing me, hey, here's how you do a set command up top. So that's kind of handy also, right? So this is going to create 3 variables for you. One called var background green, header green, and core green. All right, we're going to come back to those variables in a moment. So don't worry, I'm going to make an intentional mistake right now. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this coding window by hitting the little down arrow right here. And now that I've done that, I want to create a background color for my screen. I'm going to select this SCR well check, my screen right now, my screen name, whatever your screen name is called. And you'll see a fill bucket on the far right, this fill bucket. You can also see the fill word right here. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to select my screen name. For the word fill right here, I'm going to change the word white to my word. So again, pick your screen name, go to fill, and change the word white to var background green. Now look what happens when I type in var. It now is smart enough to say, here are the variables that have the word var there. Now, I can either use the arrows, use my mouse, or if var background green is the first item in the drop-down box, I can just hit tab, and it will go ahead and do that. But look what happened here. For some reason, my background didn't change. Well, here's what's happened. If I go over to our variable listing, we're going to see the variable has not been set yet. So we want to fix that. So let's take a look at my app real quick, and we'll see if I go to View up top here, and Variables, that I have 3 variables created, but they have no value. Again, I'm going to hit my back button right here to get back. And what we're seeing now is it looks like the variables are blank. So to fix that problem, I can, of course, save the app, close it, open it, or I can hit the little ... right here and say Run on Start. That's because the code that's running here only runs when the app starts. By selecting this little ... and hitting Run on Start, oh, look what happened! It's now using those variables and showing us the background of the application. All right, this seems like a nice logical step to go ahead and save the application now, doesn't it? So again, I'm going to go to File and Save. I'll go ahead and give it a nice green color here. I'll look for whatever icon I want here. I'll go with the scissors, since this is a well-check one. And then I will go over to Save and just save my application. You use whatever icon you want. Doesn't really matter. This is your time, your application. Okay. So by the way, we do about 15 more minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, we'll do our break at that point also. So if you're getting hungry, want some caffeine, we're gonna do a quick break in about 15 minutes or 10 minutes. We're about half past the hour. All right, so we now have our application ready to go. We may also, though, want to put a nice header in here, for example, and then put our galleries in next. So I'm going to go to Insert right here, and I'm going to drop a label in. Okay. So I'm going to move this label to the top left and kind of stretch it across the entire application, the entire screen right here. And I'll call this the text property right now, which is selected by default. I'll go inside the double quotes, and I'll type in well-check application. Call it whatever you want, okay? Doesn't matter. You can also change the name on the right here as well. Okay, so this is a label property under Insert and Label to get here, by the way. Okay? So once I've done that, I'm going to change, when I have this label selected, I'm going to make it nice and bold or whatever you want to do for the colors. I'll make it like an 18 font. You do what works for you. It doesn't really matter what you do here. It won't impact this application in any way. But this is like Word, right? I'm justifying, I'm doing bold, I'll make it white also, white text as well, which you'll see why I did that in a moment. So I have white text here. All right, so we have label 1 now in place. Okay, we can see it here. We also see it over here. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and put a background color on that as well. So a few ways you can do that. Shortcut ways, hit the little fill button right here, and it jumps to the color right here. Or you can hit fill from the property drop-down box here. Either way, it's all the same. Okay, so I went to fill drop-down box while I had my label selected, and I'll call this one var core green. Oh, sorry, I have a header green, don't I? I'll use var header green. There we go. Yeah, it's starting to take a little shape now, isn't it? All right, so I changed that to var header green. Again, this is all optional stuff. Doesn't matter in the big scheme of things. So if you missed a step, no worries. You can always play plenty back later if you want to catch up later. All right, so it's a fill property of the text box. Now I want to see a list of patients that we're going to help today. So I'm going to click in the white area, click in the background area of your screen. Okay, and I'm going to go to Insert. And I'll drop a gallery in. Now, first thing that people will have issues with, gallery and vertical gallery is what you're going to select. But if you don't see Insert and Gallery, what might be happening is your resolution might be a little smaller. So in my case, when I lower my resolution, you'll see Gallery is on the right here. Oop, let me kind of zoom out again here. You'll see Gallery right on the right here, and it's Gallery right there, and Vertical Gallery. So however you get there, Insert, Gallery, and Vertical Gallery. Whether you do it with the drop-down box right here, or whether you have Gallery in the main area. Okay? Now, the first question it's going to ask you is, where in the heck is your data at? And there are 3 ways you can specify where your data is at. One way is I can select the second row in my gallery. I can click outside of it and click back inside of it. And I can pick nursing patient right now. All right, that's one way of doing it. Now we're seeing all of our patients listed right here. Okay, pretty snazzy. The other way we can do it is we can select our nursing patient from the drop-down box on the right. And the last way we can do it is we can select the entire gallery again, your second row. We can change on the items property up top, you can see that we have the nursing patient table selected here. All these steps are the same steps you're going to do for an Excel spreadsheet, for a SharePoint list, or a Salesforce.com. It doesn't matter. It's data agnostic from this perspective. All right. So we now have our patients selected. I'm going to select the entire gallery again, and I don't want to have a picture of the patient in this space. I'm going to select the entire gallery by picking the second row, and I'm going to change this rather than image title and subtitle on the right. So I hit, sorry, let me set that one more time. I hit the whole gallery, and on the layout property on my right, I'm going to change image, title, and subtitle to just title. Okay? Now we're starting to see things come together. We're seeing patients now in here, and what I can do now is I'm going to kind of slide a little bit more, kind of skinny this up just a little bit, and maybe make it, kind of just tweak the look and feel a little bit. You do what works for you. Okay? But Mr. Richard right here, I have a first name but no last name. Now, my nurses are not good enough to figure out, you know, who somebody is by the first name. So I'm going to go ahead and select the first name for the first record. Keep in mind, the first record is your template, right? So I can kind of move it around. That's my template. The second rule of Gallery Club, right? Other than nobody cares. All right. Additionally, I'll select my guy right here, my first record, Richard. So make sure you have the first record selected. Then I'll go and I'll do up my coding window up top. I'm going to type some brand new code here, and I want to concatenate in the first name plus a space plus last name. To do that, we'll use an ampersand inside of Power Apps to concatenate two things together. So first name plus a space within double quotes plus a last name now. So for my last name, we'll type in this item, which means the row I'm looking at, dot, and look what happens. If I type in an L, it jumps down to last name, and I can hit tab. You can also use your mouse to click on it if you want. So that's a way you can kind of easily find your data. So first name dot last name. All right. So once we've done that, you'll notice that we've got all of our first names and last names. We may want to make this a different color to make it stand out a little more. This is where, again, we can, if you optionally want to, I'm going to go to my fill, hit the whole gallery, and I'm going to go to my fill property. And for my fill property, I'm going to change its color to var core green. There we go. That looks pretty terrible, right? So of course, the last thing you want to do probably during break or whatnot is just change the fonts to where, by picking the first row, change the fonts to what works for you and the arrows for what work for you. So I multi-selected this by holding the control key down or pick each of them individually. And I'm going to change my text color to white, change my arrow color to white. I might make it bold. You do whatever works for you and what you like from a design perspective. Okay? So we have first name plus last name. Let's drop, before our break, let's drop one more gallery in. This gallery is going to be a special gallery, a little different, and we'll do the same thing we did before. We're going to go and select Insert, Gallery. Keep in mind, yours might be in the up on the top right, and the little down arrow you have. And we'll go ahead and select, oh, I'm going to make sure we show Matt's comment there. And we'll do a blank gallery this time, a blank vertical gallery. All right. This time, this will be the nursing well checks. So I'll hit nursing well check. And I'm going to move this to the bottom right of my app. I like to leave a little bit of gap between all this, so I'll make it kind of like this. That'll work. Perfect. I'll leave a little bit of gap all the way around it so we can kind of see things going. I'm going to make this fill color just white. So I go to Home ribbon, I'll go to my fill, and I'll just make this one white. Up to you. You do what works for you. Again, this is no impact to these background colors. Look how pretty it looks now, though. Things are really starting to jump out now where they weren't before. They get kind of washed out. So I always like to have a light background color and then some stark differences to draw people's eye to where they want to go. So with that now done, we want to show the assessments for all of these patients. All right, to do that, we'll go ahead and look at how large this item is right now. So when I select the first row over here, see it has a huge item right here. So I'm going to kind of skinny this down a lot here. That's way too much. I'm kind of making that little cell around here a little smaller. Okay. So now that I've done that, though, I want to drop in our first item, like who actually did this assessment. So when I have that first row selected, okay, I'm going to go to Insert and Label, and there we go. A few things to note today, by the way. When we do these, when you start to enter data and you enter your email address, I do obfuscate that or mask your email address, and nobody's going to be able to see your email address. So we do protect that. You'll see what it looks like right here. It'll have those little star or little X's at the end here. So nobody's going to be able to see your email address other than you. Okay. So because we are on YouTube right now, I want to protect your information here. All right. So when I went to Insert Label, and while I had the first row selected to basically get that email address in here. Now it's showing the assessor automatically. See up top here, it says this item, which means the row, and then the column name is the assessor column name. You can make that as big or as small as you want. I think that's fine though. Let's drop one more in. Let's drop maybe the date in of the assessment. So again, I'll select the first row. I'll do Insert Label, and there we go again. All right, what do we have in here? Patient feels great. All right, that sounds good. I'm going to change those comments where it has this item.comments. I'm going to change that to this item dot, I forgot what kind of date it is, called well check date. This item dot well check date. This is going to show us the date of the well check. Okay. Now you'll see a few things here. I may want to, during break, kind of bring these things as far up as I want, kind of skinny this cell down by hitting the box around these fields. And you can see it's kind of mimicking an Excel spreadsheet right now, right? So much so we could put little headers on it eventually as well. So our last step for you to do maybe later, I'll show you one column, we'll do the rest later, is I'm going to go ahead and click outside of my gallery, and I'm going to go to Insert Label, and we're going to create a header up top for this given item right now. So I'll make it wider, and I will go ahead and double click on that word text, and I'll call this just assessor, or nurse, or whatever you want to call it, okay? And then again, I'm going to make the background color, the fill color for this is going to be that var header green as well. And I'll go white text. So this is going to show you how we can do a header here. Make sure you're outside the gallery when you do this, and I'm going to go up to Home, and I'll make this color white as the text color. I'll make it nice and bold. And then for my fill color here, which I can get by hitting the fill bucket or hit the fill icon here, either way, I'll make that var header green. Okay, that is completely optional, guys, but I just want to show you a few ways you can do that also. So this will basically be the beginnings of our headers. Kind of like what you saw, I think I've got one already open, kind of like what you saw back here in the slide. You see the headers up top here. This is kind of how you're kind of constructing those headers there. Okay, with our last few minutes, I want to see how well these patients are. All right, so again, I'm going to select the first record again, okay? And with the first record selected, I'm going to go to Insert again. But this time, I'm going to go to Input, not Label. And I'm going to scroll down, and I'm looking for Rating right here. So I'm going to select Insert, Input, and Rating. Ah, look at that. Now you can, of course, color these green and all that, but you get the idea. We're going to stop here on that. Move this wherever you want. This will be how well the patient is today. So you'll see up top here, the default value for this is 3 stars. So let's change that. Instead of 3 stars, we'll say this item dot, I think it's called overall rating, I believe. Overall rating, there it is, overall health rating. So then I'll select that, and now we're seeing the 3 stars becomes 3, 5, 3, 3, 3, and so on and so on. Now you'll notice also that when I hover over this, when I hold the Alt key down, it's allowing me to kind of edit that. I don't want that. They should be view only. So to make it view only, I'm going to select my stars, and on the right side where it says edit, this for display mode, I'm going to make it view so people cannot edit those stars. Okay, now when I hover over these, you're seeing nothing happens. It's just a read-only kind of report now. So before we go on break, save that application. You definitely don't want to lose what you've done so far. I realize it went pretty fast in some areas, but keep in mind, you can pause this and play back and rewind it and see how we're doing. You guys are doing awesome though, because I'm actually seeing the traffic on my database really climb. So you guys are killing it so far. Great job. Let's do a 15-minute break. That'll get us here at a quarter till the top of the hour. So let's do a 15-minute break. Go scarf some food down if you wish. And then when we come back from break, we'll finish up this application. We'll finish a form to input data. And we'll also show some more patient information as well. All right, enjoy your break, get some caffeinated, and we'll come back in 15 minutes. Thanks a lot. All right, welcome back, guys, after the break. Hopefully you had some good caffeine now and you're ready to rock and roll. When we get back now, we're going to go ahead and jump into some, be able to create some data, and then also be able to filter that data down a little bit so we can actually see only the patients that you care about seeing. That's our next two steps here. But let's begin by, first of all, just recapping a few things just from our, just to kind of do quick shout outs here. Real quickly again, you guys have already given a lot of money already in the chat window, so thank you so much for those that are Feeding America. None of this money goes directly to us. YouTube has the capability of just saying it goes right to Feeding America, excuse me. So thank you guys for who donated so far. That's a huge impact to people. It costs about $2 a meal for feeding people in America, so for these food banks. So so far we've already given about 70 or 80 meals based on what guys have donated so far. So thank you so much. Again, Feeding America is a network of a whole bunch of food banks, as well as they've had 46 million people last year. Additionally, we have, if you go to the link you'll find in the description of this video, is a list of all of our boot camps at pragmaticworks.com. If this topic really interests you and you're interested in that, you'll find in your chat window, or also in the description of this video, you'll find a whole bunch of boot camps that we offer that are much deeper than the course 3 hours allows us to cover. Those boot camps goes into about 4 days on Power Apps, onto all 3 app types. And we go very deep, lab-based, and it's a small class environment also. We also have on-demand learning, and all of that is 50% off for the next week here as well. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump out, and let's get into the meat and potatoes here. All right, so we left off. Let me get my ear chat open also so I can kind of watch you guys as well. There we go. When we left off, we were going through and we built 2 galleries to show data. And galleries are a nice way of kind of showing data inside of our application. So we have our patient list on our left, and then we have our, oh, thank you guys for those that just donated. We had 2 anonymous donations for $30. Thank you guys for those that are working on that, donating to Feeding America. Much obliged. All right, so as you can see here, we have our well checks on the right, and then we have our patients on the left. So we can of course add more headers and do more work inside of this as well, but this is kind of a nifty way of kind of showing data. We did this very, very quickly also. So with that now done, let's go ahead and find a way of only seeing the patient records for what you've selected. So right now you'll notice, for example, if I hold down the Alt key and select the arrow next to Richard Bush or Andy Warren or Camille, that nothing happens. So I want to make something happen on the right when you select something on the left. So to do that, we're going to go through and select the entire gallery on the right, the bottom right here, and we're going to go through and specify some code that will filter this gallery down. So to do that, I'm going to select the entire gallery. Then from the property drop-down box, we'll select items. Now this code is actually in your chat, not your chat window, but in your description of the video as well. I kept the default names under these, so I have Gallery 2 and Gallery 1. This is Gallery 1 on the left, and this is Gallery 2 on the right, so all of our code would match, basically. So when I select this up top in the item property, okay, well, is my zoom it going now? Let me turn on zoom it again. For some reason, my zoom it is not letting me. There it goes. Let's try this again. All right, there we go. All right, so for my item property, you'll notice a few things. That when I select the table right here, we can see that when I put a little down arrow right here. This down arrow will let you see what the table looks like, what the underlying data looks like here. Okay, so this is going to allow us to see the impact of our code also as we make changes here. So up top here, I'm going to go and type in the word filter as the first character up in front of the table and in front of the single tick. I'll type in the filter command. Now notice as soon as you do that, when I open parentheses here, it's actually going through and showing you how to code this up top as well. So we can see it wants a source, which is our table name, and then it wants a test of what do you want to filter. I'll do a comma here. Oh, John, thank you so much for giving to Feeding America also. All right, I'll do a comma. And now we want to figure out, well, what do you want to filter on? So I want to go ahead and filter down to where I'm only looking at the proper patient. So if I type in patient right here, There it is. There's a patient ID inside of this nursing well-check table. For those that are database people, this is a foreign key that points to the patient table. Think of it like a lookup inside of SharePoint if you're a SharePoint person. But I have that patient ID, and I want that to be equal to a certain number. So if I type in like 3, for example, and I close the parenthesis, you're only seeing patient ID 3. Right there, see the table? It's filtered down. That's not what we want to see here, though. We want to see whatever patient you selected on the left. So I'll type in GAL for gallery, and I want gallery 1, just like you're seeing here, dot selected, dot patient ID. All right, so this is going to show me whatever patient ID you've selected on the left. So even though I'm not even showing patient ID on the left, I'm showing first name and last name, I have access to every column in this gallery that would be in that table that's showing the gallery. So as I hold down the Alt key, again, or I hit the preview button, and I select Andy, or I select Richard, you'll see it kind of goes out and it's showing me all the Richard Bush ones, all the Camille Knight ones, all the Charlie, and so on as I select these. We can also up top click on the word filter, and we hit that drop down box. Look, we're only seeing, slide to the right, we're only seeing patient ID 1 now. So pretty snazzy, right? So that's Richard Bush in that case. So this allows you to kind of easily debug this. A common question we always get asked is, can I sort this list maybe? Can I sort it by, I don't know, by the assessment date, perhaps? Well, you can easily do that with the sort command in front. So if you want to sort, you're going to sort a filtered list. I'll type in the word, see right now, it's all kind of randomly generated. We have different dates here, kind of 127, 12 to 211, 210, and so on and so on. So if I put the word sort, you don't have to do this, guys, but I'm going to do it in my case, put the word sort in front of the word filter, open parenthesis. It is case sensitive, by the way, also, so make sure you do proper casing on there. Then at the very end of this, it'll ask you, well, what do you want to sort this filtered list by? I'm going to do a comma, and I want to sort by assessment date. I think it's well-check date, actually. There it is, well-check date. And I want to sort, comma, descending. There we go. So this code is in the description of the video. So that's one of the ways you can do that. If you slide to the right here, you're now going to see, oh, look at that. All the dates are sorted by the appropriate location now. All right, that is awesome. So again, I'm going to put this in your chat window just so you guys have it. I think Matt's been kind enough to kind of do this as well. That is in your chat window now as well, just so you have that as well. So there's 2 ways you can do it, but again, you can nest these functions. What's happening behind the scenes here? What's happening behind the scenes is powerapps is converting this into a SQL statement that then goes out to SQL Server or SharePoint or whatever your data source is, and it tries to translate that command into a native command for that language. So Salesforce.com, SOQL, SQL Server, T-SQL, and so on and so on and so on. So this is the powerapps expression language for doing that. So it translates it, and whenever it can do that, it does a native language. Whenever it cannot do that, a little bit of problems happen. We'll talk about those problems a little bit later. It's called delegation. So if you ever get things called delegation, that's where it says, I can't figure out how to do this query. Let me go ahead and take all that data, bring it into the application and sort and do all that locally in the application. All right, cool. So Cynthia, thank you for your donation to Feeding America. Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead now and do our next piece now. So we now have our data sorted. We have a few other ways. So one of the ways is doing a filter command. The other thing we may want to do is we may want to search for this list of patients here also to find a certain patient. To do that, it's much like a filter command, but I want to be able to search by some first name or last name or maybe their city name or whatever it might be. So to do searching of data, we can use a search command to do that. So I'll go to the insert ribbon up top again, and I'm going to go to text, and I'll drop a text input in. When I do that, I'm going to kind of move it right above, and this text input, you see it's called text input 1. Okay, I'll make it big, however you want. A few things you must do here. You see on the word default up top, it has text input within double quotes. The biggest gotcha is you got to make sure that there's nothing inside that except for 2 double quotes. So make sure it's an empty string inside of this. I'm going to get rid of text input, and I'm only going to leave 2 pairs of double quotes. Okay, so make sure there's nothing inside there. But you also want to tell people what you want them to do with that text box. So on the right side, you'll see hint text. So inside that hint text, I can say, search for patient. Something like that. Whatever you want. And then it's going to show in kind of grayed out version of it says, hey, what do you want to do? All right. So now this gallery you're seeing right here, I want to filter based on what you type up here. So I'll select the whole gallery and I'm going to look for the items property just like we did last time. Now we could use a filter command again to filter that list, but this time we're going to use a search command. And the reason why we're using a search command is because it allows us to search based on first name, last name, city, social, whatever you want to search for. You can search for n number of columns with one command. All right, so I'll type a search command, my table name, okay? I'll do a comma. This is in your chat. This is also going to be in your chat window in a few moments also. And then I want to search based on what somebody inputted in that text input. So I'm going to type in text input 1. There it is. Use that IntelliSense. Let it do all the work for you. Dot text, so take whatever is in that text box, text. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So take the text box and grab the text input from that box. Comma, I want to search based on first name, perfect, comma, maybe do last name, comma, whatever else you want to do. So I think that's good enough actually. So I'll end right there. So I'm going to paste this into your chat window as well, just so you have this. But this now searches for first name and last name, and the reason why I had you make sure that that is blank is because that this text box is blank at first, is because it's going to search for whatever's in that text box. And you don't want to search for text input 1, you want it to search for the actual nothing right now. So if I play this application, now I can go and type in Knight, for example, K-N-I, oh, there's Knight. I can search for Lee. There we go. We're getting Camille because she has an L-E in her name. And we're also getting Lee Wong. So really easy way. Let me actually play that application one more time and get rid of that. There we go. Now the other thing that we oftentimes see is how do I know that I selected a patient? Like who am I seeing here on the right? So if you want to have some kind of better control to allow your users to see what they actually chose, I can select the entire gallery again on the left. Okay, and what we're going to do here is we're going to show the user what they've actually selected. We're going to give them some kind of visual input that they chose this certain record. Okay, so when I select this, a property that's not really used a whole lot, but it's really cool, is this template fill property. Template fill means what fill color should that box around every single patient show. So what do you want to show? Right now it just takes the properties of the gallery, which is green in my case. But maybe I want to make that black or some kind of alternate accent color of some sort. So when I select the entire gallery, go to template fill, and now we're going to write an if-then statement inside of this logic to make sure that things can basically be conditionally grayed out. So inside my template fill property, I'll say, hey, if this item, which means the row I'm currently looking at, dot is selected. If this is the row that's selected, comma, black. And we could do a comma for the else statement. We'll leave it alone at that. And when I close the parenthesis, we can see Camille Knight is now selected. So whatever color you want, you put that RGB color inside there, your variable color, you can put whatever you want inside of that, and that will basically make that work. Again, in your chat window is the code for that as well. So as I select Richard Bush, we'll see it kind of selects it as green. And there's lots of little tweaks you can do to kind of make it more fun. You can select the whole gallery, and there's a property on the right here, the whole gallery, which is where to go. It's called, okay, I'm looking for it here. Oh, transition. So you can make it like pop out or push in or whatever you want. So you lots of neat stuff you can do around that. I'll make it pop out. So now when I hold the Alt key down, so it kind of jumps out a little bit, kind of dances as you move over. So lots of neat stuff you can do around that. All right, so we now have our gallery showing you how to drill in from a patient to the well checks for that patient. Now we got to enter some data, right? We got to be able to make sure we can actually add new well checks. We can do that a few ways. We can actually put the well check information on a screen above us, or in that white area, or we can do a new screen. I think it makes sense in our case to do a new screen, don't you? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go over to the insert ribbon, and we went new screen, and I'll do a new blank screen. Okay. So that's created something called screen 2 now. And we can click back and forth, screen 2, screen 1, and so on. And we can, of course, we can go through on the left side. When I select that, you'll notice the fill color here. Remember how to do that change? We want to go ahead and make that fill color. If you want, you can make it var background green. Again, it's not required anymore, but if you want to keep the same standards, do you see why we create these variables now? By creating the variables now, the way we did, we can reuse those colors over and over and over again and not worry about if the marketing person asks me to change the background color, I can change it in one click across the entire application. A few things to note, there are themes in Power Apps. If I go to Home, you'll see a theme ribbon right here, but you can't really customize it yet. They're going to make some changes eventually, probably, but right now you can't add your own corporate theme this way. You have to do it kind of the way we showed you there, or through components. Okay? All right, so now we've done that. We are now ready to do our first way of inputting the data. Now, when we input data, we can do either, we can have one form, and that one form can handle inserts and updates. So we don't have to build separate forms for both of those. And whether it's doing an insert or update is based on the mode that form is in. So let's give it a shot. Let's go drop our first form in to do our inserts of new data. So I'm going to go to the insert ribbon up top, and I'm going to drop a form in and an edit form. So insert, form, and edit. Now keep in mind, it might be, in your case, if I cascade here, you're going to see it might be on this far down arrow here. You might see forms here also. But I'll go insert, forms, and edit form. Now I'm going to go ahead and make this form a white background. You can do it however you want. I'm going to go to Home, and I'm going to change that little fill bucket here to white, but again, not required by any means for this example. Okay, so, and I'm going to kind of stretch this and move it wherever I want here. Okay, I'm going to leave a little bit of room here also. One thing we can do also to kind of refresh our user, who they're doing this assessment for, is we could go through and kind of restate some information from the previous screen. So for example, if we want to show the patient's picture, for example, or their name, we can basically restate that with that .selected.property we did before. So let's do an example of that real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick label up top. Okay. And I'm going to stretch it all the way across, just like that. I'll move this form a little bit down here. All right. And I'm going to put in here, again, this is optional. You do not have to do this, but if you wanted to, I'm going to put well check for, and then my patient information right behind it. So I'll do %, which again concatenates, and then I'm going to reference back to gallery 1. So gallery 1 was called gallery 1. There it is. Dot selected, which means show me whatever patient you selected in the previous screen. Dot, I want to get their first name, and I also want to get their last name, but we can concatenate that in with an % again and keep on going. But we'll stop there. Okay. All right. So well check for Charlie in this case. Then you of course can change your size of your font, and you make this whatever you want. You make it a bigger font. You can make it bold. You can make it white. You can make the fill color whatever you want. I'll make my fill property. I'll make that var header. But again, this is completely up to you. Not required by any means, but I'm going to center it so now we can see well check for Charlie. All right. So easy way to kind of tweak it. Now again, you pause me if you want to kind of make it your own if you like, but it's completely up to you. All right. So now I want to enter in some data here for Charlie. I need to know, like, how well is he? I want to go ahead and but there's also some interesting things in there, like, should I check for depression levels with Charlie? Is he a diabetic? Those types of things I may also want to conditionally check for. So this form is going to be different based on what you want inside of it. All right, so when I select this form, our first step is we want to wire it to a certain data source. So I'm going to go over to the data source property on the right. We also can go to on the right here, on the left here, we can also go to some properties over here as well. The data source property here. Either way, it does the same thing. But I'm going to hit the drop-down box on the right, and I'm going to wire that to nursing well check. And then boom. So we are now ready to go in and actually say what fields we want our users to do. So to do that, right below that nursing well-check table we just clicked, we're going to hit Edit Fields on the right. Okay. Now, you also, by the way, don't have to do it this way. We could just start slapping in fields and using that little insert ribbon up top and doing controls and adding in all the stuff manually. You could do that. But by doing it this way, it's a lot easier. It doesn't give you as finite control over it, but it makes it much easier. So it's almost like a wizard we're about to do here. So I'm going to hit Edit Fields, and I'm going to check. Okay, I want to know who is the assessor. All right, I want to know their blood pressure. Good. The comments, the depression rating maybe, and glucose, and maybe the overall health rating and the patient ID. So, all right, here we go. And the well-check date. All right, so here's the ones I did not check. It's probably more importantly. All right, I did not check well-check date. I did not check wait and request escalation. And I did not check the next check date and escalate patient approved. Okay, so those are the ones I did not check. The ones you must check are going to be things like the assessor and the well-check date and the patient ID. Those are the ones you have to check. But just check a few of the ones that they think may be kind of nice. All right. When I hit Add, it's going to add all those form controls into the form. And right now, as you can see, it's a 3-column form. And you can, as I showed you before, you can reorder the stuff how you want as well. There's a few things that might be useful. The first thing you'll notice is my overall rating. As I scroll down here, look for the depression rating, for example. That's a number from 1 to 5. That's really confusing, though, isn't it? A user may not know to enter that number 1 to 5. You know, they might put 99 in there, for example. So what we can do is instead of having edit number, we can instead make that edit rating. These are all the types of controls based on the data type that you may want to do. So let's do edit rating instead. There we go. So now we have those stars. Make sure you do edit rating and not view rating. Okay. The other one is overall health rating. Let's do the same thing for that one. Edit rating again. Now, if you ever get lost here, if you ever screw up and you close this by accident, you can always get here again by selecting this whole thing, the whole form, and hit Edit Fields. And it takes you right back to where you got there again. If you can't select the form, you're like, how do I get the form? I can't keep on selecting it. Pick on the white area, or you can go on the left and pick Form 1 from that side. Either way, it gets you to the same location. All right. So with Edit Fields again, there's one more piece I want to do. The comments, this is not a whole lot of space for comments, is it? So I'm going to go over to the comments one, and I'll say edit, and look at some of the stuff they have here. You have things like editing phone numbers, viewing email addresses, things that are like pre-formatted validation. I'm going to do edit multi-line text though. And by doing that, it gives me a bigger comment box that I can use. There's also some rich text editors and those kind of things also. All right, that's good enough though, and we'll tweak some of those. Now, every time I do an assessment, I don't want my user to have to go through and name the patient ID, for example. They're not going to know what patient ID it is. I don't want them to have to type in their own email address here. So those are some things we're about to fix. And I also don't want them to have to pick in the date and time. I want to go ahead and just default to today's date, for example. Okay, so to do that, we're going to select the patient ID first. Okay, so when you select that patient ID, notice it has a card around it. And a card is like a mini screen. In other words, I can move things around, but I can't leave that card. And there's a hierarchy around that. So if I right-click on that card and I say unlock, it now unlocks the card and allows us to go through and actually make some changes into it. Keep in mind, it's basically a wizard that built this for us. So that's why we're having to unlock stuff to override the wizard. You'll also notice as soon as you do that and you go back to the edit fields again, that you can no longer edit patient ID. So patient ID is kind of locked out now. Okay, so as soon as you unlock it, all the automated stuff, gone. So when I go to patient ID, I want to show the patient ID that you selected in the previous screen. Think about how you would do that now. You've seen that before already once when I did the patient name up top. So I know it's gallery 1 has the patient ID information, and I can do dot, think about how you would do it, select it, you can also hit tab to do all that, dot, and I want their patient ID. So I could just type in the word PAT, and there we go, there's patient ID, and hit tab again. So use those tabs, use that mouse to go ahead and do all the typing for you. Don't do that work manually. It's a pain in the butt to do, right? So this basically becomes your patient ID. And I'll put this in the chat window, and Matt will as well. There's your patient ID. All right, so now I've got the patient ID from the previous screen. You tell us this is Charlie, he's patient ID 4. Now your option now is, do you even want to show that now? I don't think I even want to show that now. Why would I? They know it. They know who they're doing assessment on. So I can pick, don't pick the fields here, pick the entire list here. And by the way, for that patient ID, I picked the actual text box here to make that change. The text box, the default property, and there's my code right there. Okay? So when I select the whole card now, okay, I can choose to hide it by changing the visible property on the right here. I can also choose to do other things as well. So maybe what I want to do instead is just gray it out. So that's an option as well. So do that. I can either hide it by changing the defaults. That's one option. The second option is I can go to my display mode property on the entire card. And when I go to my display mode property, I can change that. It says parent.display mode, which means inherit from the form what my display mode property is. But in my case, I'll type in display mode dot, and look at the options I have. Do you want to disable it? Should it be interactable? Or should it be view only? Let's take a look at how these look. One is view only, looks like that. Okay. The other option is to disable it. It looks like that. So you do what works for you, but you probably don't want somebody typing in a number in there, right? So you do what works for you. You can hide it, you can make it view only, or you can make it disabled. So however you want to do that. There's 3 options you can do there. Okay? Next is the assessor. So the assessor gives us some pretty interesting things we can do. So the other function we're going to use today next, you've seen the search function, you've seen the filter function. Our next function is the user function. The user function allows you to go through, and whoever signed in, you can retrieve their email address, you can retrieve their image, or you can retrieve their full name. Okay? So in our case, I'm going to select the assessor, and keep in mind, I'm not storing your email address. Nobody will be able to see your email address, okay? So it's okay. I'm going to right-click on it and say Unlock. Okay, and once I unlock that, I'll select that text box for the assessor, and the user function looks like this. It's a capital U with an open-close parenthesis. And when I click on dot, I can see the email address, their full name, or their picture. I'm going to choose the email address right now because I have that masking already built in. So you're going to see my email address right now. So if you have questions afterwards, that's how I know you actually paid attention. All right. And once we do that, that's all there is to it. We can of course hide that. We can go through and make it read only. We can make it disabled. Whatever you want to do there, it's not required. So I'm not going to do any farther on that. You get the idea, right? All right. So that's the assessor. The last thing I mentioned was kind of a pain in the butt here, is having to pick our well check date each time. So for our well check date, I'm going to default that to today's date and time. Again, I'm going to right click, say unlock again. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to right click on this guy, and I'm going to unlock the field. Then I'm going to select the first date picker, not the time picker, but the date picker. And right now it says parent.default, which means default to the parent now. I'm going to change that now instead to now, open close parenthesis. So now function returns the date and the time. There's also a today function, which just gives you the date. So either way, I'm using the now function just interchangeably for the time being. But you'll notice that once I do that, today's date is now showing in that date picker. Now, of course, the user can change it, but that's a good starting point for now. Okay? Because you're thinking the nurse is probably right in front of the patient right now. The next one is a time picker. Now, just to show you what this looks like, I'm going to hit the play button just to kind of show you what it looks like. You don't have to do this. And I'll come back to that error in a moment here. But if I hold down the Alt key and hit the drop-down box, you can see there's hours and there's time. Okay? So I'm going to select the hour one first. And you see it has all the hours of the day, the 24-hour clock. So I want to default that to something else. Oh, thank you, Anonymous, for donating $20. That's actually 10 meals for Feeding America. Thanks, guys. All right, you guys rock. I'm going to change this from items to default. What should the default value be for that date picker? So again, it's the drop-down box right here where the hour picker is. I went to the default selector, and I'm going to change this. There's this parent.default right here. Right here, I'm going to change that to type in now open close parenthesis. I'll paste that in your chat window. This is for the date picker. For the minute picker, it's the same exact thing. You'll pick the minute picker. See, it has every minute of the day. I'll go ahead and change it to default for the minute picker. And then I'll put the word now for the minute picker. Open close parenthesis. All right. So now we can see that we're defaulting to, looks like 115 now. So some great questions we're getting asked. One question was about the person picker and how does this work for SharePoint? You can absolutely do that when you drop a field that happens to be a SharePoint person picker. It automatically turns that into a searchable box where people can type in Tracy and they'll see Tracy Willis at that point, and you'll be able to then write that back. You can also, by the way, default that to Tracy Willis also if you want to default that as well. So absolutely possible, Tracy. Great question. We have tons of them, and Matt is rocking in the chat window right now. Thank you, Matt. All right, so we have our date and time now working beautifully. There's a symptom that I want to show you right now, and you saw it when I hit that play button. That when I hit the play button, it's showing me, well, oh, where's my mouse? Here it goes. Where did that play button go? No, let me go. I lost the chat by doing that. Sorry, guys. All right, there's my mouse. When I hit the play button, you'll notice it says no item to display. So you remember before, Mustika, thank you for donating $20 to Feeding America. Awesome. So remember before I was showing you how the form can be an edit mode or it can be an insert mode. So right now, when I select the entire form, right now we can see it's an edit mode on the right. So edit mode, which means it's expecting a record that you want to edit. That's not what I want to do though. I want to create a new record. So my first step I have to do is change that, select the whole form and change its default mode to new mode. And the minute I do that and I hit the play button, now I actually see the data. Before, when it said, I'm going to go revert mine back to what it said before. When I had edit mode, it said this, no item to display, which means it's looking for a record that you want to edit. That's not what I want to do in my case. So I'm going to keep that as new mode. Here we go. And now you want to go through and actually provide a submit button to send that data to the database. All right, that's our final step that we want to do here to make this form actually write back to the database. This is actually a lot easier to do the way we're doing it. So I'm going to go over to Insert Ribbon, and I make sure nothing is selected on the right here. I'm going to the Insert Ribbon, and I'll drop a button in. Now we can, of course, color code this button, put a fill color in, we can do all that kind of stuff. You get the idea, right? But in our case, I'm going to double click on the button, and I'll just type in the word save. You can also do that at the top right, or you can do that with the text property on the button. Either way, you do what works for you. Will, you killed it also. 20 pounds for Feeding America. Thank you so much, Will. All right, so what we want to do now is we want to go through and actually wire that save button up. So to do that, we'll select the save button. We'll go to the property we want to change is the on select property, and we'll change it from false. And we're going to type in some new code here. It is some, oh, not there, excuse me, in the coding window. It is submit form. Again, use those tabs, form 1, and then close the parenthesis. All right, so this is going to send the data to my SQL Server now at this point, or your SharePoint list, or Excel spreadsheets, or whatever your data source is. Submit form can either do an update, or it can do an insert if you wish. Okay, so it allows you to do either way that you want to do. All right, so now that we've done that, we can go through and actually tell it what do you want to happen next. So we could chain all these events together. But now that we've actually got the data to submit, we want to see, did the record actually make it there? Now we could put it right at the end here, these semicolons, we say do this, then do this, then do this. But in our case, we're going to put that somewhere else. We're going to select the entire form, and we're going to say, in the property drop-down box, again up top left, we're going to go to the on success property. This on success property says, hey, if that row successfully makes it to the database, then do this. There's also an on failure property for failures and on reset. So for the on success property of the entire form, I'm going to go ahead and type in new form, form 1. Okay, that basically resets the form back to, it's going to reset form 1 back to ready for a new record again. Whenever you do this, if you don't do that, it will basically reset the form and goes back to the good old-fashioned mode. It will cause problems, in other words. So by doing it this way, it will not go back to edit mode. It will stay in new mode. Okay? So now that we've done that, we also want to pop a message up saying, great job, thank you so much for doing that, and so on. Speaking of thanks, thank you Beat and Anonymous for also giving $40 to Feeding America. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do a comma now. Not a comma, excuse me, a semicolon. And I want to notify the user that what they did was successful. To do that, we can use a notify function. The notify function will put a little message on the top bar saying, bravo, great job, you just saved a record. So I'll do a notify function. I'm going to put my message after that. So bravo, you rock. Okay. If you put a comma in there, then we can go through and specify, well, what kind of message do you want to say? I want it to be a successful message, which means it's a green bar. Information will be a blue bar, and an error is a red bar. That's all it changes when you do that. So I'll hit success. I'll close my parenthesis. So here's what it's doing now. It's saying set the form back to new mode again, and then go ahead and say bravo, you rock in the top. And then you can also, as you go down, you can hit format text and it'll kind of clean it up for you if you want. That's optional. You can choose to do it. You cannot choose to do it. Whatever works for you guys. All right, Matt has already pasted in some code in the chat window also. Now our last step we want to do here as we do this is we also want to send them back to the previous screen. To do that, I'll do a semicolon again. You could use a back function, which will send you back one screen, or I can type the navigate function to do the same thing, but now I'm going to specify what screen I want them to navigate to. So I want to navigate to the well-check screen, or whether that first screen was called. I'll do a comma. Are there any kind of screen effects that you want to do here? Do you want to fade the screen in, fade the next screen out? Do you want a cover where it slides out, slides in? I'm going to go ahead and do a cover. I think it's kind of cool effect. And I hit some close parenthesis. All right. So this function, you could do whatever works for you. The navigate function is going to go ahead and navigate to the previous screen. Matt has pasted in some code in there. I'll go ahead and paste in some code as well to show you my code as well. Really simple code though, 3 lines of code that do a lot of work, a lot of heavy lifting here. Okay, so it's going to submit the data and then it's going to do that other code. Let's see if this works now. All right, let's try it. I'm going to hit the play button now and we are going to do a well check for Mr. Charlie here. All right, let's see here. Here's my play button. I'm going to do a well check here. He has a blood pressure of 90/80. All right, I have no idea if that's good or bad. I have high blood pressure, I should know that. And I'll put, all right, this is a public database, keep in mind, you guys, so keep it PG-13, but keep it funny. All right, so well checks should not be funny unless they're on a live YouTube. So we'll say, patient neck was going 360 and spitting pea soup. Projectile. 6 feet. All right, good enough. Call a priest. Good enough. All right, cool. So the patient has some problems. I forgot my well check. My overall health of this patient is definitely going to be a 1. And I'm going to go ahead and say the glucose levels, whatever. All right. You'll notice it also puts stars next to things that are mandatory, like the well check date is mandatory. I'll then hit save, and hopefully now Charlie. Oh, there's Charlie. He's got a 1-star review now saying Charlie's got some problems for a well check on this date. Awesome. And I got Bravo You Rock up top as well. I can click on it and it will then go away by hitting the little X there. Okay, so that shows up on things like your iPhone or your Android or Windows or Mac also. So awesome. We now have our first patient in. I want to see how you guys did. There's a few ways we can do that. I can kind of flip patients around here and I'll eventually, oh, look at that. I'm starting to see A lot of reviews coming in for my patient here. Let's see how good of a sense of humor you guys have also. I'm going to drop in a new label in here. You don't have to do this, guys. I'm going to select my first row. I'll drop my label in, and I want to see the comments. There we go. So I have this item.comments, and there we go. So we're seeing some, there we go. So we got, well, he's not quite dead yet. I like my Monty Python fans out there. So now we can kind of see what you guys have done. We got slow down old man. I like it. Living the fluffy life. You guys rock. I like it. I like a good sense of humor here. So you can see that you guys are killing it because we had almost no reviews of these patients. We had like 5 or 6 reviews before. Now I'm seeing hundreds of you guys have done an assessment now of this patient. So you guys are following along beautifully. Awesome job, guys. All right, so now we have got it where our patients are now inputting data. We now want to go ahead and create a button to allow people to actually do a new assessment also. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and make sure nothing is selected in the first screen. So I'm in that first screen, whatever that might be. You can find that first screen in your tree view on the left here. Once I've done that, let's go ahead and drop a button in and move it wherever you want. Color it however you want. Doesn't matter. Double click on it to name it. Or you can also double click or select over here. And I'll put new assessment. Awesome. Hopefully that will work. There we go. I'm going to kind of resize it. And of course, again, to change a color and all that, it's really simple. It's a fill color if you want. You'll see there's a, oh, there we go, fill color. So if you want to make, if you're really picky like I am, you can make that var head, core green, and there you go. Okay? So now that you've done that, we are now ready to actually wire that button up. You've already saw the navigate function. The navigate function allows you to navigate to other screens. In my case, I'll select that button here, and I'm going to go to Action, and I'm going to do the lazy man's way. I'll go to Action, Navigate, and what screen do you want to go to? Screen 2, and I'm going to choose the cover right effect, just for fun here. Okay? So we can kind of do it that way. Now that I've done that, if I hit a new assessment, it slides right. And then I can hit do my thing, it'll slide left. Okay? So lots of cool stuff we can do in this. All right, so now we should be on screen 2. I also might want a cancel button, right? I want to get out of this. I made a mistake. Let me get back to the previous screen. Okay, to do that, I'll drop in another button again. Okay, I'll just drop it in, move it right side by side with my save button. I'll call this one cancel. There we go. So in this case, I want to go ahead and undo whatever you may have done. So there's a few things you can do. Reset form can undo it. I want to make sure, just in case I'm in edit mode, I'm going to also go back to new mode also. So we'll skip a few steps here, but the first thing I want this button to do, I'm going to hit Action again, and I want to navigate to the previous screen. And see, it wrote the code right here. All done, ready to roll. Then I'll do a semicolon after that. Again, this is optional, guys. I'll do a semicolon after that, and I'll say new form, form 1. In other words, oops, not filter, form 1. All that's doing, this is my cancel button code. So I'll go ahead and paste in the chat window, cancel button. There we go. So all this is doing is saying, all right, navigate to the previous screen and then wipe out any kind of edits that you may have done and reset it. You can also do reset form, which will wipe everything out also, but I want to make sure the form mode was properly in new form. Okay, so if I hit the cancel button now, hold down the Alt key, click on cancel. There we go. We're back in this mode right here again. Awesome. So now, I'm seeing a lot of reviews. I'm seeing, actually my database is showing almost 1,000 reviews you guys have done of our patients now. So I got a great sample data set. So thank you for playing around, playing with me, and actually getting your hands dirty. Now, you may want to you may be looking at these reviews and you're a little upset because somebody else here has entered a review funnier than yours. And this is not good. So you really want to fix that. You can't be outdone by some guy and across the country or across the world. You got to fix that, right? So that's our next step, is we want to learn how to edit reviews and make yours way funnier than the guy below you. All right, so that's our next step. So to do that, we're going to create an edit button first to allow somebody to edit these reviews, these assessments. So again, to do that, go to your first screen here that we're in right now. And I'm going to select my first row, whatever it might be. And I'm going to go ahead and do Insert, and I'll drop an icon in this time. And the icon is going to allow us to edit. So pick whatever icon makes sense for you to do edit. You can also add your own icons, by the way, too. But I am unhappy with that edit icon. It's one of the worst little pencil icons in the world. So I'm going to go through, let me zoom in a little closer here. I'm going to go through and look for, so it looks a little better. I like this little pin icon for edits myself, but you do what works for you. By the way, once you do that, you can slide it to the right so every icon has it. Resize it however you want. You can color code it, up to you. Now additionally though, once you have the icon in, you can notice that you can change the icon later over here on the right. All right, cool. So what do we want that icon to do? We want that icon to open up the other screen and set it to edit mode, not new mode. By setting it to edit mode, it's now going to be ready for editing the data, not inserting new data. All right. And Tracy's buttering me up. I appreciate it, Tracy. All right, cool. So let's go ahead now and change that to edit mode. All right, so we select this pencil or pen or whatever. A few mistakes that people make here. Let's imagine, for example, I select my gallery. Don't do this. I'm going to select my gallery just to kind of make a few mistakes. I'll go to Insert Icon. I'll drop some random icon in, and it's up here on the right. It's not actually in the gallery. So if that happened to you, chances are you didn't have the first row selected. You forgot the rules of Gallery Club, and you got to select the first row because you don't care about Gallery Club because it's boring. All right, so let's go ahead and select that first pencil, whatever icon you selected in the first row. And I'm going to change this word select parent for the onSelect property of the pencil. The onSelect property means when somebody clicks on this, what happens? Well, I want Form 1 and the other screen to basically to be in edit mode. So I'm going to first of all say, yeah, let's go ahead and navigate to the other screen, to screen 2. Okay, you can put whatever effects you want, up to you. You can also use that little action button to do this. Okay. And then I'm going to do a semicolon, and I'm going to say edit form, Form 1. Oop, I made a mistake there. Let me go fix that mistake. Form 1. So again, all this is doing is saying, hey, change that form to update records, not insert records. Let me go ahead and paste this into pencil code. There we go. All right, so when I select this now, look what happens. I'm going to select it. Hit the pencil, it navigates over here, but I've got a few problems here. First of all, if I hit the play button, it's in edit mode. Great, it did what I wanted to do, but it has no idea what row to edit. That's my next thing I need to fix. So literally in 2 lines of code, we're going to make this work. First step for editing data is you navigate to your form like we did, and you turn it to edit mode. The second step is you specify what row you want to edit. So the same form can be used as a Swiss Army knife. So to do that, I'm going to select my form, here. And when I select that form, I want to go ahead and change the item property. The item property is only used when you're in edit mode. And it basically says, what row do you want to edit? So the row I want to edit is, hey, take the row that I selected in the previous gallery, so gallery 2 this time. So gallery 2 is that bottom right gallery we had in the previous screen, and say whatever row you selected, move it over here. And by doing that, that's all you have to do to send the entire row to this screen. So now, check out what happens behind the scenes now. If I were to go outside of here, he's very sick. All right, so I can go and cancel this. And if I select this guy here who has a very disappointing review here with no comments inside of it, and I will put whatever comments I want to override that person. Override me. There we go. I will hit save. There we go. And we'll now see override me right there. Okay, so that's all there is to it. All the old code works except for that one piece. Now you'll notice a few problems we had here. You may not noticed it yet. When I just overrode that person, I put my own comments in there. Because of the way the defaults work, I overwrote their email address, their well-checked date, and I also overwrote any other defaults that I might have had in place. Let me show you what I mean one more time to make sure you get this. Okay, again, I'm gonna pick some random review here. All right, I'll type in my comment here. But look here, whoever's review it was is now gonna have my email address and my time inside of it. And when I hit save, they have my review, all right? But they also have my email address, not the originator's email address. There it is right there, comment, whatever. So we gotta fix that now. We gotta make it where when I do edits, I don't override you anymore. So let's go ahead and select any review again. I'm gonna hit escape to get out of this mode, to go back to screen 2 here, in other words. All right, now to fix this, we basically have to say, when I'm in edit mode, don't use the defaults for the assessor. I want you to use whatever value you happen to have stored in the database. So to do that, we're gonna do some if-then logic to make that happen. Okay? The if-then logic is going to say, when I'm in new mode, show Brian's email address. When I'm in edit mode, show Tracy's email address because it's her review. Okay? So to do that, it's really simple. I'm going to go and say, let's just do one option here. We'll only do one here. I'll pick the assessor, and you'll see my code right now is always going to show whoever's email address is signed in right now. So I'm going to wipe that out. Okay? And I'm going to paste this in the chat window, so don't worry. But I'll say if, and we need to detect what mode is this form form 1 in. So if form 1 dot mode is equal to form mode dot new. In other words, this form is in new mode. Then, yeah, go ahead and use that email address. Otherwise, just use this item dot email or assessor. Sorry. There we go. So by doing it this way, let me go ahead and paste this in now. All right, so I'll paste that into the chat window there. So by doing that, this is it, what the code I just put in there is the assessor code. And what that does is it's now saying, hey, if I'm in edit mode, then go ahead and show the original person's email address instead. So let me play that and show that it has B. So let me go ahead and do S here. Now I'm saying S, XXX, X, so on, so on, so on. So I'm not going to override her data now at this point, or his data, okay? And if I'm in new mode, if I do a new assessment, you notice it puts my email address in there. So you can use this to have one Swiss Army knife form that can be in new mode or edit mode. So we've now seen the past hour how you edit data, how you insert data, how you filter data. Let's now see how we can delete data also. And that will finish up our major example. Again, we haven't done this yet. Make sure you save, guys. I'm going to hit Control-S to save, just to make sure that you have saved. If Control-S doesn't work for you, go to File and Save, okay? Our next step is we may want to go through and allow you to delete a record. So I'm going to go back to the first screen again, hit the Cancel button, and I want to put in another icon. Again, I'll select the first row, Gallery Club, and then I'll go over to Icons, and I want to find an icon that matches a delete. I'll use a trash can. An X, a trash can, do whatever works for you. I'll move that right next to my pen. All right, there we go. A question I get asked all the time often is, can I make sure that this only works for certain people? If you're the boss, you can do this. You can absolutely do that. You can use the Office 365 directory to say, hey, if I am Brian's boss, then I can delete it. Otherwise, I'm not going to show the trash can. Okay? So this code is actually really simple. The code for the trash can is the remove function. The remove function is going to remove the row, whether it is from which database, the well-checked table, excuse me, comma, which row do you want to remove? This item. Remember, this item is always referring to the row that you want to remove. All right, let's go ahead and paste that bad boy in. All right, so now we can see that if I hold down the Alt key and I pick a rando here to remove, there we go, that it will hopefully disappear. Now it's disappearing on my screen, but a few notes about this. We have over 1,000 people on this webinar right now, and if 1,000 of you guys all start deleting rows, we might run out of rows, and you might not see it actually refresh on your screen. So it's okay if you don't see it remove. But that's how you can do it, and I bet you if I go hop around now, I'm going to see a lot less. I'm seeing a lot less of them now as I go back and forth here. Okay, so just a note, there's a lot of people like that are trying to delete the same exact records. You may want to go to a random patient and a random row at the end to delete if you wanted to play along here at home. All right, cool. So now that we've done that, we are ready to go through and do a few more tweaks here. We have 20 minutes left to make this application really sing. Again, save the app, guys. We have it deleting, we have it inserting, we have it updating, and we have it showing data on a certain piece here. Now we want to go through and show some other things that are pretty snazzy ways of making this app look a little better. So, for example, I'm going to go ahead and drop in an icon, and I'll look for my rectangle at the very bottom. All right. On the first screen, you do not have to do this, guys. We are in the pretty stage now. The app is working, right? You built a whole app in basically an hour. So if you said you built 0 apps for, you now have 2 apps under your belt. So awesome job, guys. Add it to your resume. We're ready to go. All right, so when I select that rectangle, I'm going to make the fill color of this rectangle white. And I'm going to put some stuff inside this rectangle to kind of really make this app look a lot prettier. So the first thing I want to do is put the patient's picture in there. So I'll go to Insert, and I'll go to Media and Image. Look at the other kind of media things you can do. You have barcode scanners for looking at the barcodes and QR codes. You can also take the video. You can do all sorts of stuff. You can actually look at a map, all sorts of good stuff you can do. I'm going to go to Image, and I will move that image right here for the patient. And can you think about how we would get the image of this patient inside of here? All right, just pause me if you want to try yourself right now. We know the patient's information on the left side. And we know that gallery on the left side is called Gallery 1. That's your clue. So if you unpause me now, we'll go ahead and type in Gallery 1 dot selected dot, and I've got the image of the patient. Oh, all right, got the image of the patient. It's called, that's kind of scrolled down here. It is called Patient Photo. And that's just a URL of for the patient. I'm going to make that kind of wherever I want. And let me kind of zoom in a little closer so you guys can see that. Now, there's a few things we can do on the patient to make it look a little prettier here also. One thing is, we can go through and say, I'm going to fill the whole square up. So no matter how it is, I'm going to fill it up. Maybe a little skewed, but that's okay with me. So I'll go and say, change the fill property to, the fit property to the fill property. All right. Once we do that, you see it's filling the whole screen. We can also go through and change the border radius property a little bit lower to some number like this. Try 60, for example. See what happens. Oh, look what happens. When we go 60, we're seeing it rounds the edges for us. So you can kind of play with the numbers yourself to see what works for you. Next, we want to go through and say, hey, should I check for depression levels or glucose levels or those kind of things? So let's find out how we can do that. So I'm going to drop in a new label here under Insert and Label, and I'll move this right here. And we can, of course, put the patient name and all that. You've seen how to do that. But let's do something a little more difficult right now. Let's go ahead and say inside these little double quotes right here, I'll say check for diabetes or for glucose. Something like that, okay? And then, I'm going to make this a little bigger so we can kind of see. There we go. And I want there to be an X if I should check for glucose, and a checkbox if I should not check for glucose. So, right next to this, I'm going to drop a icon in. I'll just put a little checkbox in. I'll move that to the right of check for glucose. Resize it however I want. Up to you guys. Now, this is your app, guys. And you can pretty this up always later also. So instead of the on select, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to the icon property. And right now you can see the icon property is checkbox. Perfect. So in my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, if gallery 1 dot selected, again, that's all the patient information, dot, oh, look at that, check diabetes level. All right, perfect. So check diabetes level. So if that's true, I could put equals true, but it's implied true, so it's not required. So if it's true, then let's put the check in there. Icon.check. Okay? Otherwise, with a comma, else is a comma, let's do icon. I think it's going to be cancel. I can never remember this one. There it is, cancel. And then close a parenthesis. I'll go ahead and put this in your chat window. And you guys are rocking here so far. And also, speaking of rocking, Eric, thank you for giving $20 to Feeding America. That's 10 meals for somebody in a state near you. All right, so now we're seeing that we have check for glucose. We have an X for this person right here. We have, I'll go to Andy here. Let's see if we can find somebody who has diabetes here. There we go. We can see this person right here, Charlie, has a diabetes check, and Andy does not. So again, that code that's in your chat window right there will allow you to change the icon conditionally based on certain things. Likewise, in the form, if they don't have diabetes, you can also hide those with the visible property. So you use that same code, but just put the visible property true or false based on that also. Okay? So awesome. So we're looking really, really good now. There's a few more things we can do with this. I know we're down to about 15 minutes left, and I do want to leave a little time for questions here as well. But make sure you save. And I want to show you a few more things we can do here that are really nice for other examples here. We had a lot of questions about SharePoint, a lot of questions about other kind of connectors as well. And if I go over to the database icon, you'll see there's tons of connectors when I go to connectors. All right, so now we're in the mode of you don't have to do this, guys. I'm just going to go ahead and pre-answer some questions that we get oftentimes. And thank you, whoever anonymously gave $20 to Feeding America also. All right, so one of the questions I get asked oftentimes is, well, what happens, what is this delegation thing, first of all? This happens a lot with SharePoint. So let me show you how we can kind of trigger this. A question I get asked oftentimes also is, how do I only show Brian's, whoever signed in, their pieces as well? So we'll kind of go into that piece as well. So to only show Brian's pieces over here, I'm going to modify this to make it where I'm only showing my own reviews. So what I'm going to do here is in this filter command, you guys do not do this. So I'm going to show you a few of the flaws that we're going to experience here. We can have multiple queries right here. So let me do this. Let me kind of expand this a little bit. I'll hit Format Text to kind of make it look a little cleaner here. I will put this code in your chat window, but you don't want to use this code quite yet. All right, so right here I have patient ID equals whatever. If I put a comma here and I say, all right, assessor equals, and I want to put my email address, which again is user open close parenthesis dot email. Okay. Now it's only going to show my own assessments. However, a big caveat here, we have a lot of people here that have put assessments in here. You see this yellow exclamation point here? That is that dreaded delegation warning that I mentioned before. Right there. Oop, okay, it's not quite doing it yet, but here we go. Has a delegation warning right here. Again, what that means is it cannot translate the query that filter I just did into a SQL statement to pass to my database. So to fix that, I'm going to go ahead and do one more piece here. I'm going to create a variable that's going to store my email address. So remember how to do that? Again, you do not have to do this, guys. Our app is done. You guys rocked it. We're just kind of playing now. I'm going to go to my app word up here, and I'm going to add my email address as a variable right here. So again, I'll do a semicolon. The variable command is set, open parenthesis, var user email, whatever my variable name is, and then I'll do, the user function dot email. This is a flaw in the way it interprets these queries here. You cannot use the user function in a filter as of right now because it always triggers a delegation warning. So instead, I'm going to run my app on start. I'm going to go back over here again, and as I scroll down here again, I'm going to change this user open close parenthesis dot email to var user email. Now that problem goes away. And do I have any assessments? I think everybody's deleted my assessments now. So if I had any assessments, we would see those here also. There's one. All right, see B, spitting pea soup and all that. All right, so that is awesome. So that's a way of getting around delegation. So delegation basically means that it can't interpret how your app is working. And what it does is it goes through and it sucks in all the data, and it does all that locally on your app instead of on the SQL Server. That's a big problem, right? So you can notice how many rows it's doing. When I go to File, Settings, and Advanced Settings, You can see here that's going to do 500 rows at right now. That can be as much as 2,000 rows. But here's the problem. If I have more than 2,000 rows, I'm a little bit screwed here. In other words, let's imagine I want to find out all the assessments that Brian has done. And Brian has done assessment 2,150. It's only going to do the top 2,000 rows. And Brian's 2,150 row is going to be ignored. So delegation warnings should not be handled lightly. We have a whole videos dedicated to how to fix that problem. There's lots of workarounds as well in there as well. Okay? So, it has some great questions here. Let's see here. All right. When will your app start to slow down? So we have Power Apps that with galleries of 20, 30 million records in many cases. And for these 20, 30 million records, it only fetches 100 records at a time. So as you scroll down, you'll see it shows you only a subset of those rows as you scroll down. So you can make Power Apps that support billions of rows if you wanted to as well. Question from Pawan. Can I create a confirmation on delete? You can absolutely do that. I have a whole video on our playlist about how to do that. Go to the cheat sheet, go to the playlist, and you'll see a whole video about how to do pop-ups to confirm deletes. Also, thank you guys. About 4 of you guys anonymously gave $20 to Feeding America. That's awesome. Thank you guys for doing that. All right, when is a model app? When should I do a model app over a Canvas? Talked about this a little bit earlier. So the Canvas app gives you that pixel perfect kind of view. It's a lot prettier application. Where a model-driven application, it's much more like a form that you can't control a whole lot of, and a list that you can't control a whole lot of as far as the look and feel of it goes. You control what's in it, but the look and feel is a little different. So, but this app right here that I'm showing you in the model-driven side takes about 10 minutes to build. We spent 3 hours building the app today. So it's a lot more work to build it this way. A question here also, can you update one part of the record and not the whole record without editing? You could absolutely do that. So in your cheat sheet, well, first of all, it only is going to update part of the record there, but on your cheat sheet here also, it talks about a patch command at the bottom. The patch command, what you see right here, can be very specific about what you actually update. The patch commands for doing inserts and updates programmatically versus doing it through that one button there as well. So a really handy way of doing it there as well. All right, so a few questions from that Matt has come in here. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put those in your chat window. We'll be going over some questions here as time goes on, but a few kind of recap pieces. The cheat sheet that is in your chat window right now. There we go. This cheat sheet has a code that we covered today. Covers the coloring that we covered today, the naming conventions. There's also a great class that Matt Peterson, who's in your chat window right now, has written. It's free. It's called the Power Apps in a Day class. You can get there by hitting this App in a Day free recording. That's Matt doing the class. We also have a whole bunch of boot camps. If you go to classes and boot camps, these boot camps you'll find, we actually just added one because we sold out in the middle of this class. We sold out of a few of them. So this one has about 1 seat left. This one has about 8 seats left, and this one we just opened up today because they were all selling out. So these boot camps right now are 50% off. They're done virtually. They're done 4 days. They start assuming you know nothing about Power Apps, and they work their way up. They're very intimate classes with 10 to 15 people, and they get 4 days of Power Apps. So it's much deeper knowledge in there. My team, there also is, you'll find in the description of this video, a promo code for 50% off the prices you're seeing right here. So those are some deep knowledge you can get from, and that's me myself teaching the first boot camp with a few others as well. Daryl, thank you so much for donating to Feeding America as well. And a question from Tracy. She said that the model-driven apps look a lot like Dynamics 365. Tracy, that's a good point. The reason why it looks like Dynamics 365 is because really Dynamics 365 is using Dataverse as its database behind the scenes. Additionally, Dynamics 365 is one big fat model-driven application. So as you build these are going to look like your CRM of choice, Salesforce, Dynamics, whatever you might be using there in that side. All right, so okay, so question here, patch function can update a single property. Yes, a patch function can update the entire row or a single property if you want. We have a lot of great questions here. Matt, if you see some good ones, if you mind just pasting them in the chat window that you and I share right now. So question here, mention how Power Automate can integrate RAP. It's a great question. So in our course that we did not cover today is how Power Automate can integrate in this. So you'll notice right here that if I go into my app and I select, I'll just drop a button in for giggles here. All right. One of the things we can do is under the action ribbon up top, I can hit Power Automate. This gives you the ability to integrate with how Power Automate flows, to do escalation requests perhaps, that will do an approval perhaps. You can also do it for like doing multi-phase updates or doing like a data-driven robotic process automation. So all those things can be done inside of that Power Automate. Any kind of workflow you want to do will kick off asynchronously and then come back and you can say what happened after that. So Power Automate is very powerful when it holds the hand of Power Apps. It's a good point there from somebody. All right, we had a couple people actually donate. Two donated for Feeding America. Thank you guys so much. Again, if you're international, just donate to your local food bank. All these food banks are really struggling right now with COVID. A lot of the shelves are bare right now. And 1 in 5 of us in America, and I know quite a few overseas also, are struggling to put food on the table right now. So your help today, every $2 is basically in our meal for a family. So that's really awesome. Thank you guys. All right, so question here. Is it hard to troubleshoot this without actually seeing the screen? Okay, no problem. Sorry, that's from Matt. Well, it brings up a good point about troubleshooting. So there's a number of ways you can troubleshoot a Power App, even if you are not like in front of the user. So one of the ways is you'll see this little option right here on the left, and it is the monitoring option. This allows you to see what queries are going in and out, what buttons are being clicked, and you can do this after the fact inside over here, inside of Make.PowerApps. You can select whatever app you want, and there is a monitor button right here. So this allows you to monitor whatever application you want very easily. All right, so awesome. So there's also the ability, again, thing we mentioned as well, is how do I move the app from environment to environment? Well, if I select the details of this app, one of the options here is to export package. This will create a zip file of all the stuff we use today inside of your environment. And then you can then import that into your other environment by going to Apps and then go to Import Canvas App. Again, I have a whole video on that inside of our playlist. All right, where's the best place to go for coding assistance and examples? Well, there's a lot. Again, at Pragmatic Works, we have a whole bunch of boot camps. We have a whole bunch of videos. We also have that on a cheat sheet I provided you. There is a whole bunch of extra references there, including my playlist in YouTube. And if you go there, I have about 80 videos, about one a week or so, that I do for how do you do that. So if you look at, here we go. There's my cheat sheet. There we go. And once I find my cheat sheet, I'll scroll down. You'll see my playlist right here. That's a good place to start with, at least. And you'll see, oh, look at that. We actually crossed $500. You guys rock. Thank you guys so much for doing that. You actually hit our goal with 16 days left. You guys are killing it. And you'll see a whole bunch of videos I talked about, things like doing pop-ups and all those kind of things are inside of this right here. So this will help you kind of, as you get into this, we have a whole bunch of classes, 60 classes on the Power Platform and Azure in our on-demand platform as well. So you sign up for the free account, you can see a trial of those. And also you sign up for the free account, you can see the other classes for free, like the app in a day and a dashboard in a day. The flash sale, Julie, if you don't mind pasting that in one more time. The flash sale is in the description of this video underneath me. You can also find it in your chat window. Julie, if you don't mind pasting that in one more time. And we have a questions here. Okay, let's see here. Did I overlook training discount code? There it is. All right, have I? Thank you, Julie, for putting that in there. I may have missed a part, but how do you publish the app? Okay, in the app form. So that's a good point. As we mentioned before, the app, remember the app we've been building right here. When I go to File and Save, every time I do that, it's saving a new version. As soon as I save it, it turns to a Publish button also. If I go and I hit the See All Versions, you can see that, man, I've saved a lot today. I've saved 4 times a day, but version 1 is the only live version. So if I happen to be a user of this and I hit this little link right here, we're seeing the old version of the application, which doesn't do a whole lot. So if I want to publish it, I can hit the Publish version back in that screen, or I go to Versions and I can hit version 4 and I hit Publish here. The other thing to note here is I can also share it from the screen. So you'll notice that when I hit Share up top here, that I can then share it with Matt. So Matt, who's in my audience right now, I'll type in Matt, there he is, and I can make him a co-owner of the app or just a user of the app. There's a lot more rules behind this also. So if I go through and I say, hey, I want Matt to also, there we go, so now Matt's a user of the app but not an owner of the app. I could then promote him by hitting the checkbox and then doing that as well. If this is a SharePoint app, I need to make sure that he also has access to SharePoint lists that I'm using as well. But now that I've done that, remember my app that looked like trash here before? I can hit refresh, and about 30 seconds later, I'll now see it here. There we go, with our check for glucose levels and all that. Additionally, my phone now has the application that you're seeing as well. So if you sign to your phone after you publish this, you'll be able to see the application you have built today as well. All right, so, and Matt just got an alert on his Apple Watch. Absolutely, so your Apple Watch, your iPhone are all lighting up right now, letting you know that there's an app out there for you as soon as somebody shares an app now as well. All right, so again, we are almost out of time, guys. Let me actually open up the video here again. If you have any questions, thank you so much for those that are asking questions today. Matt, thank you so much for answering questions in the chat window. Mitch, thank you so much for being my handy director back there and also answering questions. There are a ton of class links you'll find at pragmaticworks.com. There we go. And the App in a Day class we just mentioned, you can get by going to Start Was for free. We also do hackathons. So if it's something if this is really interesting to you and you want to train your team, we can do a hackathon at your company where we train your team how to fish, not with this data, but your own data. It's a private training with your own data. So guys, thank you so much for Feeding America today and helping out there. If you're watching this video 2 weeks from now, please go ahead and add some donations. Well, if you like this material, this free material we did today, none of that money goes to us. It goes right to Feeding America and right to food banks all around the country. So guys, I'm going to go ahead. We're now at 2 o'clock. I'm going to sign off, but thank you so much for joining us and have a wonderful day.